We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead, and then we'll do our invocation by Doug Harden, our police chaplain. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you can remain standing, Doug Harden, our police chaplain, is going to give us our invocation.
Why don't you join me as we pray? Father God, we thank you, Lord, for this time together tonight, Lord, and this new year that you have given to us. Lord, we ask that, Lord, you would be upon us, Lord, and giving us prosperity. Lord, that it would be a year of peace and healing, Lord. God, that you would watch over us, Lord, and guide our steps. Father, we feel so comfortable coming and asking you these things, Lord, because you're so clear that, Lord, you want to be part of our lives. You want to guide us and direct us, Lord. And Lord, as we acknowledge that you don't just simply want to rule over us, but God, you've given us a part to play in this. So Lord, we ask that you would be with us as your people, as a community, as individuals. Lord, you've given us a calling. You've told us that the first and greatest commandment is to love you with all of our hearts, with all of our soul, with all of our minds, with all of our strength. And the second commandment, Lord, is much the same, that we would love our neighbors as ourselves. So, Lord, would you, Father, grant us the wisdom to accomplish those things. And that, Father, the attitudes of our heart and the words of our mouths, Lord, the actions, Lord, that we walk in every day, would they speak of your love, Lord, and your work of love in us. So as we give you this evening in this council meeting, Lord, we pray, Lord, that the words that are spoken would be spoken through that filter of your love and our love for you, our love for our neighbor, and even the decisions that are to be made, Lord. Father, may they speak of your glory and your grace. So go before us this evening, Lord. We thank you for hearing our prayers. And again, Lord, we just desire you to be our God, and we'll be a blessed people for it. We ask this all in your name. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. It is now my honor and privilege to ask two esteemed individuals to please join me at this time. Judge James Gray, retired, and Mr. Doy Henley. If you could please come up and walk around, I want to take a moment to acknowledge both of you. Standing to my right in the gray suit is James Poland Jim Gray. He was born February 14th, 1945, is an American jurist, and in 2012 he was actually the vice presidential candidate on a national basis for the Libertarian Party. He was also a presiding Superior Court judge here in Santa Ana for many years, and he comes really from a line of judges. His father was a highly regarded federal judge, Judge William P. Gray, in the Los Angeles area. He attended schools both in La Cañada and Pasadena, and Judge Gray received his undergraduate degree from UCLA in 1966 and a Juris Doctor from USC in 71. Through his 29-year career with the legal and judicial community, Judge Gray has not only donated hundreds of hours of volunteer time to existing community service-oriented activities, but he's also created and implemented a number of innovative programs on his own. Things such as Drive Alive, along with the Orange County Healthcare Agency, and Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and Stay Include in School program, both at Willard Intermediate and at Santa Ana High Schools. And, although he's championed many causes, his work in the Peace Corps is something I think that had a big impact in his life and in his desire to serve and to help others and to make a difference. And here in Santa Ana, I think we are just absolutely blessed to have him not only in our midst and in our presence, but to have his spirit and his his energy doing good things. Things such as the Heritage Museum. To where he's not only on the board of directors, he raises money for them, he contributes money to that cause, and he's doing it so that children here in Santa Ana and throughout Orange County, can have better lives by understanding history and understanding what the roots here in Santa Ana and in Orange County are as it relates to the Heritage Museum. So before I present him a proclamation and a resolution, I just want to see if Judge Gray, if you'd like to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I have three things I would like to say. First of all, thank you. I'm gratified, honored to be connected to the city of Santa Ana and for you to recognize me. My family very much appreciates it, and thank you. Number two, we should be giving the city of Santa Ana an award. That I come from the 60s and believe what Bob Dylan said, which is, you're either busy being born or busy dying. And here in my time in Santa Ana, I have seen that this city is truly busy being born. I've seen as a judge and as a citizen us with very serious problems here in Santa Ana, in which, you had people parking in their front yards, and they changed the ordinances, and they enforced it fairly but firmly. We had huge problems with overcrowding in apartment buildings here in Santa Ana that you'll remember. And they were really thorny, difficult problems. But the city of Santa Ana knew that unless you get control on this and you stop that bleeding of people and taking advantage of them, the city goes down. So I applaud the city of Santa Ana and its leadership, and I hope you folks feel the same way. In fact, would you join me in giving a vote of thanks to your leadership in the city of Santa Ana? Because that's the way I feel. And the third is, yes, I am involved with the Heritage Museum. The Heritage Museum is still struggling. In fact, we used to be partners with the Discovery Museum. That is not called the Discovery Museum, by the way. It's called the Taco Bell Discovery Museum. They have funding. They have assistance. They're thriving. The Heritage Museum needs that sort of support. And if you're not familiar with it, and many people are not, we show how life has been in Orange County throughout the ages, from the Native Americans on through the Mexican-American Hispanic contribution and all through the Victorian era, etc. So look at the Heritage Museum, help us, and I am here to invite all of you. In fact, anyone that would like to come, but on the 22nd of January, a breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's hosted by the Heritage Museum. To the city council members, even Doy Henley, please come and see during the light what we do there. You'll be proud of us. You also will want to share in that. So that's enough time for me. But again, heartfelt thanks, and life is good, particularly here in the city of Santa Ana. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge Gray. And if I may, here is a proclamation recognizing you as an exceptional citizen and for all the work that you've done. It says Judge James Gray retired. I don't think you're retired. You have that spirit, you have that energy, you have that desire to make a difference, and I just hope that, you might not be wearing the black robe anymore, but you're just as active as you ever were, and please continue to do great things here in Santa Ana. Thank you.
Actually, I wish you'd tell that to my children. They probably wouldn't believe it, but I need all the help I can get. And the second is I do now have an RET after my name. I keep telling people it does stand for retired. Some people say retarded, but I'm trying my best.
Doy, why don't you step right here for a moment, please. Standing to my right is Doy B. Henley, and he was the Chief Financial Officer and owner of Aeromill Engineering Company, here in Santa Ana, a computer automated manufacturing firm functioning in the aerospace industry until he sold the operating companies in 1998. He's also part owner of Cox Hobbies, a Corona-based maker of radio-controlled motor cars and gliders, airplanes, and all that. If you see Cox, it's part of what Doy is doing. And presently he operates Henley Properties, which is a property management company. As much of the industry here in Santa Ana changed over the years, and some of the manufacturing went out into the Inland Empire and beyond, Doy changed the function and use of many of his properties here in the city to keep up with the times and continue to be profitable and strong. Doy was raised in Mount Vernon, Illinois. His mother, who he refers to as working poor widow, he did not have money for college, but attended, it's what it says here, Doy. It says, you can correct me in a moment, but it says, but you attended vocational classes instead, worked at a string of different factory jobs in Illinois until he moved to Southern California in mid-1950s. Additionally, Doy has served on the Private Industry Council as a Santa Ana chairman and a delegate to the White House Conference on Small Businesses. Doy's ambition and entrepreneurial skills have contributed to his valuable involvement in the Lincoln Club of Orange County, a political activist group that is committed to exercising personal responsibility as freedom's most essential element in order to secure individual liberties. Doy has served both as chairman, as treasurer, and as president. He is currently the chairman of the board of Chapman University. And you might say, well, Chapman's over in Orange. But look, there's a lot of Chapman in Santa Ana, especially through the Ruben Martinez bookstore, which is, if you go up to the bookstore, it says, Martinez Bookstore, the Chapman University, because there is a direct connection. There are students that end up at Chapman University because of the connection through the bookstore that's right down off of Broadway between 3rd and 2nd Street. And that all has been part of Doy's gift to the city, if you will, to where, his heart has not only been here for many, many years. You want to talk Kiwanis? I think Rob Richardson, who I think is here, might be the only one that can maybe tell you more things about Kiwanis, and it's simply because Rob is a walking encyclopedia. But Doy is not far behind Rob in that category, and Doy is above Rob in the category of how many years and what he's done with the Kiwanis. He was there when we were trying to help out, children that had physical impairments, in some of the different parks and the different schools, the Kiwanis would bring out swings so the kids that maybe would not otherwise be able to swing could enjoy the swing. And as you look at Santa Ana today, it is a different city, and it's a different city in large part because of the long-term commitment from folks like Doy Henley. So I want to take an opportunity to honor him as well as Judge Gray today. And before I present him the resolution, I would like to offer him a chance to say a few words. Please, Doy.
Thank you. Gee, it sounds like a long time ago, doesn't it? See, when I moved to Santa Ana from the Midwest a long time ago, my house cost me $10,600. And my wife and I thought we would never be able to afford that. Didn't think I'd make enough money to make the payments. $62 a month, I want you to know, and in those days, to a guy like me, that meant a lot. But I went to work, and I tell you, one of the great things is by coming to Santa Ana and being part of this community, that's what makes it work. I used to argue with my friends from Anaheim, that little town up the way here, And they used to envy Santa Ana for all the right reasons. I'll always never forget this, that they said, well, how come you guys got all the manufacturing business down there, which provide the good-paying jobs for the city, for the citizens of Santa Ana? We really envy you guys in being able to do that. And in those days, it was really true. We had the best people working in the manufacturing field, and we could compete with anybody anywhere in the world. And then we did that. So I'm a part of that thing where we did business in those days. I grew with the city and with the county and with Southern California, and we've had an absolute, for the benefit of you people that remember what an e-ticket ride at Disneyland is, I've had an e-ticket ride. And the deal is that it's still going on for some way. I should have retired a long time ago, but I really hadn't had time for it. We've now got Chapman University, run into Ruben Martinez. We reignited ourselves after knowing each other a long time ago, and you know Ruben, he wants everybody to read. He wants everybody to become a student of art. He wants to be able to talk about all of those things that we're able to do over at our bookstore over here. I commend you for it if you get an opportunity to go by and see Ruben and what goes on over at our bookstore. We're really proud of that. My service in the city with Kiwanis, where we built the barrier-free park. It's a mouthful to say. But the truth is we did it for the right reasons, for some kids that needed a way to enjoy activities outside, and we made it work. Thanks for a partnership with the city in that regard. So when I go to my reward, I will always be favorable in thinking the great things that have been accorded me and my family right here in Santa Ana. Not only do we have every opportunity, we have great people to work with, and we don't have that snow and ice that they're having back east. So I can tell you right now, this is the place to go, and this is the future of our country. It's right here in Santa Ana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doy, and I know you're involved in even other things that we didn't have an opportunity to talk about right now. And one thing I'd like to say is that Judge Gray, I know you're also on the board of directors for the Nicholas Academic Centers. And that, along with education, reading, the stuff you're talking about, Doy, it's all part of the package. And it is just such an honor to be able to present this to you, to recognize you as an exceptional city, and for me as mayor in particular, to know that there's folks like you making such a difference in this community day in and day out through all the different things that you're involved with, just make it a wonderful city. So it is my honor to present this proclamation to you. It talks about how you came here. It talks about your successes. It talks about many of the things I read earlier. But in particular, it mentions how you do this from the heart, how you have the strong belief in the missions that you embark upon and the leadership that you take to make a difference. So let me humbly present this to you for your wonderful service. Thank you, Doy.
Thank you. One other thing, I really appreciate this, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I'll always remember it. And I know you got this kid that's trying to get into Chapman. And we'll have to talk about that. I'm real concerned about his grades. 3.9, doing all these things with his SAT. That's a step in the right direction. So, not that it makes you any guarantees or anything, you understand, but it won't hurt to have him mention that he knows me.
I tell Miguelito, you just got to get good grades, and unfortunately, Doy, he wants to go to Pitzer over at the Claremont colleges.
I don't understand. I don't think they're still in business.
Look, once your kids are above, like, I don't know what age it is, they'll act like they listen to you, but they've got their own mind.
I've heard that.
You heard that. Thank you, Doy, and thank you, Judge Gray. Thank you. I now want to have Councilor Benavides, I believe it is, and Councilmember Reyna. They're going to be making the next presentation.
As we get ready for the next recognition, and I'm going to have the whole squad come on up. So Tony, Peter, Jason, bring you guys on up. The next group is going to be Suavecito Incorporated. So all your staff, all your people you have with you, bring them on up. You know, this particular recognition is definitely near and dear to my heart. And most of you know I dedicate a lot of my time and energy into young people. And we don't always get to see their path 20 years down the road. But today we're going to get to take a small little snapshot with these individuals. Thank you. Looks like you brought everybody. All right. Bring the whole team. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good to see you. Good to see you guys. Good to see you.
There's actually more. We're just missing. I'm going to pass it on. Okay.
Well, let me share a little bit of just some of the background that I know about Suavecito. And some of you may have been introduced to Suavecito pomade the same way I was. I was reading the register a number of months back and learned about this small business, this company that was birthed here in Santa Ana. We heard some about the gentlemen who've been here in the city for many years, many decades. And they talked a little bit about Santa Ana of old and the rich history that we have here in our city. And we heard some about the nonprofits and the organizations that they supporting young people. There's a lot of great things that are going on in the city of Santa Ana, even today, as you think about successful areas at the Auto Mall or Main and MacArthur and high rises and City Place and Main Place Mall and our downtown that's just taken off. A lot of positive things, a lot of exciting things in our city. Then you also have areas in town, such as the neighborhood that I live in, some of the tougher parts of town, neighborhoods like where Councilman Reyna grew up. And so there was a story in the register about three gentlemen who grew up in one of those maybe more challenging neighborhoods, but had this entrepreneurial mind and spirit about them. And more than anything, it was just this creativity and wanting to look good and wanting to help their friends look good as well and created. And I'll let them hopefully tell a little bit more about the story, but just that in the kitchen, in somebody's kitchen, just coming together and putting some ingredients together and putting together this hair pomade. And then having that entrepreneurial mindset and going out and sharing it with their friends, and then having some of the barbershops locally pick up on it and become interested in learning more about the product and eventually carrying the product. So I remember reading it. I thought, what an awesome story, cool story about Santa Ana kids do well. These guys just grew up in our city and are doing well for themselves and doing well for just helping out their neighbors and friends. And I thought we need to bring these guys up and recognize their efforts and again, just some of those good news stories of good things that are going on in our city and in some of our neighborhoods. I remember a few months ago walking down 4th Street here during the Noche de Altares, the Day of the Dead event with Councilman Reyna. And pointing out, I mentioned to him, hey man, have you heard about these guys, Suavecito, and because they had a booth there. And as we walked up, all of a sudden, Roman is embracing and hugging and high fives with a number of the guys that were actually started the Suavecito brand in the company. So I was sort of trying to tell him about it, and all of a sudden, these guys have a lot of history that he didn't even necessarily realize. But one of the neat things is oftentimes, actually, Councilman Reyna talks about how it takes a village to raise a child, and it's important that we all come together, and his commitment to our young people. And some of the stories that were coming up there was just that commitment. A number of these gentlemen, and again, hopefully they'll be able to share a little bit. We're talking about way back when Roman, even though having grown up in a tougher neighborhood and maybe not necessarily having those positive role models per se in his own life, but as he grew up, decided he wanted to step in the gap and be that role model for some of those kids. And some of those kids ended up being now running a company. And they were talking about going to camp and programs that they took part in here through the city and being mentored. And just it was just amazing to be able to see that direct impact, that life-on-life impact, one that Councilman Reyna has had, that the city and its city's programs have had, to be able to raise up these young people again that are now young men, businessmen, entrepreneurs doing well. So anyway, it was something that I wanted to make sure to again recognize them, recognize the good work of Councilman Reyna as well. But maybe you could share a little bit more and have the guys share a little bit about that, kind of the stories and how it all came about.
Absolutely. You know, and these guys represent everything that's great in Santa Ana. They really do. They were born in the community, a product of our Parks and Rec programs. They learned how to fish. They learned how to do arts and crafts. We took them to Catalina, which we're working on bringing it back. And they came in and day out. And to see them go from a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young man and with a whole future ahead of them to being able to create a business and entrepreneurship here in Santa Ana. They sell over $1 million units a year worldwide in 4 different nations. How cool is that? That is absolutely fantastic. That's success. The American dream is live and well in Santa Ana, and they represent it, and there's a whole bunch of young people that have that same entrepreneurship spirit that we need to continue to cultivate. These guys are doing a great job. I said at some point you guys are going to go global. As long as you keep your headquarters in Santa Ana, I'm absolutely fantastic for it. I'm sure they might share 1 or 2 stories, but one of the things that I definitely love was the name of their company, Suavecito. So I asked them, how'd you come up with this name? He says, well, we were getting all ready to go out for the night, and we looked really sharp, and one of our aunts says, wow, look at you guys. You guys all look suavecitos. And so that name stuck. And that's what they ended up putting on their product, and that's what they represent for the city of Santa Ana. Allow me to bring them in real quick. I'm not sure any particular order, but we have Peter Adame. We have, come on up. We have Mike as well. I apologize. Tony as well. Jason. And the other brother is Frank. But jump on in. Don't be shy.
So anyway, we want to thank, first of all, the city and Roman Reyna and Mr. David. And it's a bit emotional for us to kind of be up here and talk about this kind of thing, just because we have a bit of a heart for the city, and especially the memories that we have with Roman growing up. I
don't know. It's we remember growing up and then kind of getting pushed out of all the community centers we used to go to over at Centennial Park, and Roman would always find us room for us to go to places like, hey, go to Rosita, they'll have room for you guys there. You guys could join the programs over there. Hey, go to Jerome, I found some room for you guys there. And just kind of pushing us around. Even just kind of growing up and just kind of, I have to say, getting just pushed out of your own community center because we didn't have any money to be involved with it or anything else. It got to a point where it used to be really free for all of us. And I remember being around 13 or 14 years old when we started getting really pushed out because we didn't have any money to pay for the daycare and things like that, and basically just got pushed out into the streets. But one thing with Roman, he'd always find room for us somewhere else at another community center and things like that. And sorry, it's just kind of emotional thinking about it. But yeah, definitely. Yeah.
No, definitely. This is difficult because we're not used to talking in front of groups of people. But I think the best thing is like trying to give back to the community and to the people and actually be humble. I think that's how we've made it this far. I think if we really let the fame or something get to your head and things like that, you kind of lose track and you kind of drift away from where you came from and who you are. So I think giving back is cool. So there's it. Oh yeah. Thank you. I could break it down really quick. It's a long story, but at the time Pete got laid off and he got a severance check, and with that money we wanted to do like a little restaurant, something in downtown. We had a cool business plan. We had no money, no equity. We have nothing, right? Our parents don't have any money. I'm a friend. Actually grew up on the same street as these guys, so we all grew up in same neighborhood. So we all went to the park. Our backyard was the Santa Anita Park, so that was our backyard. And so he got some cash. I helped him out. I was broke, so all he said is just help me out. So we took the time and we just put this together. And we went to the banks. No one would give us money, so he started making this stuff. And I said, hey, why don't we just try selling it, because we'd use it. So we ended up selling it for like a good year without any labels, which is totally illegal. Like I'll say it now. Yeah, we're legit now, so we pay taxes and everything. But I mean, it got to that point where we became a legitimate company, and Tony came into the business. I think about a year, maybe a year into the company. It wasn't even a company then; it was just us selling out of the back of a truck. And he came in and structurizing. He's like, if you guys really want to grow and make this something big and important, I don't know, something like that, right? And he kind of came in and cleaned up the mess that we had, and I think it's been something crazy. I don't know, made a monster. So we're just trying to feed this beast. Yeah.
And I think for us too, one of the biggest opportunities, we had all these friends that went to college, went to school, and came out, and they had nowhere to go. A lot of them got degrees in fields that they couldn't get any jobs in, and we said, well, hey, let's figure something out. Let's get that degree you got in, and let's see if we can make it work for the company. We have a friend that just graduated college with a photography degree, hired him, and just kept hiring more and more people. Now we're up to 22 employees, all friends of ours who have worked with us, and we all put in the time and everything else because they all see how big the company is growing and how much love and how much everything else that we put into the company. So for us, really, our company is really our employees that actually put in their heart, put in their effort and everything else. So along that, we always say all the time that if the company ended tomorrow, we'd still be fine because of all the people we've met, all the friends we've made. There's people in the city that look at us and think like, what are these guys up to? What are these guys doing? But luckily for us, we got friends like Eddie Q in the back who helps us out with any kind of questions or any legalities or anything else that we got. So yeah, we're real fortunate for the people that come into our lives and helped us. So yeah, definitely.
So sort of the proudest thing for us is that, growing up in the community we grew up in with the kind of people that supported us where our parents couldn't, and this kind of thing, is that we've sort of carried along that work ethic and that mentality with us our whole lives, basically, and it sort of put us in the position that we are now, that we're in now. And like Pete said, now we're up to like 22 employees. We got distributorships and all kinds of stuff, but we never lose sight of where we came from, and it's the sort of thing that we instill in all of our employees. And we're always proud to say that we're from Santa Ana. I mean, we travel everywhere around the world, and we brand the hell out of our product, but everything that our product, all the branding our product has, we make sure that it says Santa Ana on it because we want everyone to know where we came from. And
what's your website and where can folks find your product?
Suavecitopomade.com. I mean, right now we're like in about over 1,000 barbershops across the country, but the nearest barbershop that carries us is El Catrin Barbershop off 4th and Birch, and so you can find us there, and any other barbershop, I guess.
Yeah. How about another round of applause for these Santa Ana boys done good.
As I just about to hand this out, I'm a little nervous and touched as well. I'm very blessed to be involved with the young people's lives and to see them grow. And it's the gratitude that I have for the people that were in my life that reached out to me, that helped me see a better future. This is why it's imperative that we continue to educate our young people and to cultivate those relationships and let them know that they're valued and let them know that they have a path to be successful. They too can be the next entrepreneurs as long as they stay in Santa Ana. So let me give this over to Tony Adame. Peter. And Jason. Of course, yeah. Just give a little recognition to your staff, just that they're here real quick. Those are in presence. You want to name them off?
There's everyone here.
Just name them off, right? I'm going to put them close. Just name them off real quick.
We got Danny over there, photographer. We got Richard, Elmer, Oscar, Eric, Zalapa, Denise, Michael, Diego, Frankie, Tony. I'm Jason Venable. I go by Jaybird, so there's still more people working at the office right now. They couldn't come down, so I just want to say one thing though too. It's a new year. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know if we deserve it. I can't say that, right? We do. Thank you. I just seem like there's a lot of people that deserve a lot of good things in this city, and I guess we're still young, and I think we're going to do a lot of good things in upcoming years. Hopefully, this year is a really good year for us, and we know it will be. So we wanted to give it back to the city and the people. So yeah, I want to say thank you. We really appreciate this. This just means a lot to us. So really,
Again,
thank
one
you.
more round of applause. Thank you.
It's the beginning, man. Yeah.
Want a photo op? Before you take off, bring a photo op. Absolutely, 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 absolutely. Absolutely. You guys want to take
All right, we're ready to continue with our meeting, and I'm going to ask Madam Ms. City Attorney, do you have anything to report out of closed session, please?
Thank you, Mayor, council members, members of the public. I do have two reportable items. In the first matter of David Rondow versus the City of Santa Ana, the council authorized settlement in the amount of $19,665. It was a unanimous vote with all members present, with the exception of the mayor. And the second matter, the City of Santa Ana versus Leanna Galvan. This was actually a subrogation claim that the city has settled for $22,000, again by a 6-0 vote with the mayor absent.
Thank you. With that, I now want to turn our attention to the public comment, and just tell folks that if they want to speak, please fill out one of these green forms. We do have a couple speakers that want to speak on specific items, like item 75A, for example. But other than that, we have just other folks that just want to address us during public comment. So let me go ahead and begin with that and start with Alex Vega, followed by Joan E. Molina, and then after that, Steve McGuigan. If Alex isn't here, let's go with Joan E. Molina, please. Is Joan here? Come on down. And after Steve McGuigan, Tom Lutz, and then Stacy Simons. I think there's going to be a lot of folks speaking at the same time or as a group, so please go ahead, Joan.
Okay, this is in regards to Michael Anthony Molina versus the City of Santa Ana. Okay, sorry. I'm usually pretty loud anyways. This is in regards to Michael Anthony Molina, plaintiff versus the City of Santa Ana. Case number 30-2010-003-77048. We were called by the City of Santa Ana to coach Little League for Parks and Rec for fast pitch set up by the baseball machine, the A-Tech rookie. We were not given any formal instructions. We did not sign up or do anything. It was just given to us, our team and everything. First of all, I would like to ask you how many of you value your brain? Because if you don't have your brain, then none of you will be in the position that you are in today. You would be home, watching TV, being a vegetable, having pain in your head, having to take medications, 5 to 6 of them. My husband was a Marine, a tough guy. He loved the kids. We all loved the kids. One day when we went to the practice, the kids were there. They saw a 16-year-old sophomore from high school on May 6th of 2009 set up the machine. There are policies and procedures and requirements on setting up the machine. My husband was by the backstop. You can read, the policies are on the ATEC website. My husband was standing by the backstop talking to the women on the bleachers. The guy decided to release the first ball as a test pitch. It rolled across the home plate. So what he has to do is to readjust it. The second ball wound up in my husband's head that flew off 5 to 10 feet to the side and gave him a major brain injury. No ambulance was called, nothing. No incident report I had ever seen was done. This led to his amygdala, which is the frontal part, to make irrational behavioral decisions that wound him up in prison. He has a term of 35 to life due to the city of Santa Ana's brain injury. I am very ashamed that on Monday he sent a letter to Judge Sheila Fell and to Laura Rosini. Rosini called for a dismissal. The first offer was $5,000 for a brain injury. We have over $30,000 of bills at St. Joseph's Hospital. Praise the Lord that he is a veteran. The Long Beach VA took up the rest. Through his numerous ER visits and his MRIs, I have lost a husband, and my daughter has lost her father due to the city of Santa Ana not addressing and showing gross negligence throughout the whole trial. I pity them. I told them I pitied them in the thing. Rosini apologizes, but at the same time, she looks to the side out of her eye. I go, you do not apologize. You are not sorry for what was done. You looked out the side of your eye. I communicate by the eyes are the window to the soul. So I ask you guys to examine your souls to see if this was justice. I would not give the city of Santa Ana any award for their lack of ethics. I'm sorry, Judge Gray. You have seen a different picture of the city of Santa Ana. You need to see.
Thank you. If you could please conclude.
So I conclude is that this is going to go to an appeal, and you haven't seen anything yet. It will be something like the social service worker of Ricken, the lying social service worker, where they are to be paid out more than what was asked for. So,
thank you. And Madam City
yourself.
Attorney, maybe if later you could fill in the council afterwards.
My only comment, counsel, is you may recall that we did update you on this case at our last closed session.
Okay, thank you.
My daughter was also a friend of your son's, and we met on the playing field at Santiago for the Little Olympics thing, and you asked me what you could do, and I, and also at ACE, you asked me about teen challenge, if it was a good thing, and you handed me the little puzzle things as my thing was.
Please, the light is red, but look,
Good.
I'll follow
Okay.
up personally with the city attorney. Thank you, Joan.
That.
Steve McGuigan, followed by Tom Lutz. And Tom, are you guys going to have a group of speakers, and do you all want to come down? Why don't you start coming down, because right after Jim, your whole group is up. I recognize the names. Please go ahead, Jim.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Happy New Year, one and all. This is going to be a great year, lots of new opportunities, lots of possibilities, and lots of new ways of looking at the same old issues. So, in light of that, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Centennial Park. I know that we've talked about the college over there several times, and for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure that most of you already do, the college has a Centennial education facility over there. They signed a lease 40 years ago or so that said that they will be there for 40 years while they look for another place to move to, and then they will move out and they will move along. And they have not done that. Now there's another pending lease, or I guess it's a new lease that has not been ratified by you yet. That's for another 5 years while they get their stuff in order. And I agree with them. Moving sucks. It's really a terrible nuisance to have to move. But the reality is that at one time, the college did have a storefront college. It was over down off Bristol. It was called the Marketplace, and it was an education center that was an adult education center providing many of the exact same classes that are provided at Centennial. You had the ESL classes, you had the adult education GED classes, you had some childcare classes. A lot of those things were being handled out of the storefront. This proves two things. It proves that the college does not need that particular facility, that it can be done anywhere in the city, and in fact, it should be done closest to the center of the city where transit is available and where the concentration of the actual people using the facility are. Second of all, it proves that if you did have to move a facility, it can be done, because when their lease was up there, over on Bristol, they moved that facility. They vacated. Now, what we're asking for is not that the college stop what they're doing, because we think that what they're doing is a fantastic and necessary program for the residents of Santa Ana. It's important that they be able to do the continuing education things that they do at the Centennial Center, but they need to be doing them in a more practical place. Over the course of time, you're going to be moving a lot more people into Santa Ana. The decisions that you make today and on into through the next couple years that you sit on this council are going to cause a lot of new development, a lot of new people. Now, you need to provide park space for them. And what I can tell you is that if you cobble together space like they're trying to do now, to do a land swap, that's great, because you'll have tiny little parks in different areas of the city, and you should have those. You absolutely need those, and those should be covered by the Quimby Act, which means the developers pay for it. But the opportunity space that you have at Centennial is roughly about 5 acres, because you have 2.6 acres of building and then another couple acres of parking lot that could be returned to the public. You don't have that kind of opportunity space anywhere else in the city. And whether that space becomes just grassy area, whether it becomes speed soccer arenas, whether it becomes a regular soccer field, a baseball diamond, anything else, you use your own vision and come up with whatever that opportunity is, something that you can put into a big space. These are things that you cannot put on street corners and into small spaces around the city to serve the public. So think of that as you go into the future and realize that for the number of people that you have to serve and the amount of space that you're going to have to generate, you can't do it anywhere else but Centennial Park.
Steve, if you could conclude, it's red. Thank you, and thank you for all that you do. Now we have a group, and Tom, why don't I turn it over to you, and then I know it's Tracy Simons, Jay Bogey, Christina Rush, Robert Gonzalez, Lam Bree, I believe it is, Geronimo Chavez, and John Palacio, Marcus Nelson, and I think that's the group, correct? Did I miss anybody?
Yes, Miguel. The Washington Square contingent is here before you.
Go ahead.
We will be having 3 speakers. I will be one of them, and then 2 others. But we have residents that are on our ad hoc committee that are here representing us tonight.
Is John Palacio part of your group, or should I call him separately?
He'd be separately along with the other coalitions.
Got it.
Christine Rush and some of the others that you had mentioned.
All right. Please go ahead.
Anyway, my name is Tom Lutz. I am president of the Washington Square Neighborhood Association. And the last time I was president of the Washington Square Neighborhood Association was back in 87 to 89. And it was either the end of that year or the following year is when the city rolled out the plans for the Bristol Street widening, which was down at Carr Intermediate School, and along each side of the auditorium they had what the designs were going to be from all the way from the south end clear up to Memory Lane. And at that time the road meandered along, and it was all park-like settings, etc., with commercial and retail use on the corners of the lots, with all the underground wiring of the utilities. We understand things change over time, but what we are asking here tonight is to maintain as much as we have been led to believe through the years. Just as recently of June 25th, I attended a meeting with a couple of others from our neighborhood association, which I sent you an email to the city clerk to disperse to you. And it talks about, the city was talking about green space and full takes, sidewalk improvements, everything except the overhead utilities that they had run out of money. We're here requesting that this project not be dumbed down any more than necessary. Our next speaker is going to be talking about the needs we are looking for and what we want. And then we did have a meeting with the city, and our third speaker will give you a recap of how our meeting went with the city manager and the public works director. But I will give you this just to the clerk to enter into your files about everything we've been told in the past was still told to us as recently as June 25th. And all of a sudden, it seems like in the last couple of months, everything has been changed, and we're here requesting for the items that you'll be hearing us talk about. So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy Simons now. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tracy, please.
Hi, Tracy Simons. I live at 1310 Louise Street, and I'm in charge of the ad hoc committee for the Washington Square for the Bristol Street widening. And on December 13th, we met with the city manager, and I wanted to thank them. We presented many concerns and questions, and when we arrived at that meeting, which lasted about an hour, it was very well prepared, and all of our questions and concerns were answered. After that, our concerns we want reiterated is we'd like a 10-foot sound wall, the same type and scale that's found on Bristol and First Street with the trellis and the vine. We want the continuity because we're now going to go from 4 lanes to 6 lanes, and they're going to back right up to our bedroom practically. We want more pedestrian-friendly sidewalks, wider sidewalks at 8 feet wide, along with a 6-foot wide parkway along Bristol. And we're talking about projects 3A and 3B from Civic Center up to 17th Street. We want a designated right turn lane from westbound Washington to northbound Bristol. And then the other thing we'd like addressed is the noise from McDonald's. McDonald's is going to stay, we understand, with the full take of everything else. And we would like it address the noise with the drive-through microphones, since it's going to be now closer to the homes. And then the other thing I want to bring up is the only way we found out about this meeting was in this very small ad in today's Register in our town. And we would appreciate being advised in the future of any meetings that concern Project 3A and 3B with regards to the Bristol Street widening. Thank you.
Thank you. And you have a third speaker?
How you doing, council members? Jay Poggi, Washington Square Association. Just wanted to give the wrap up for the meeting that the city, we're very thankful we had the meeting. It was very well detailed with the historic documents. All the engineering has been done. We wanted to thank you for that, and I think it was pretty much in line with most of what we were asking, that be done to continue that continuity, because good planning, good continuity is good planning. So basically that's what I'm here to wrap up, that we were very appreciative of the meeting, and we would like to see that all the things that were brought up at the meeting, which are documented through the project's history, get accomplished. And that's really what we want to see, that gets done. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So now I have Christina Rush. Do you wish to speak? Please go ahead. You're next, followed by Robert Gonzalez.
Good evening. I'd like to begin by thanking the City Council, the City Manager, and City staff for meeting with the Bristol Street Business Owners Coalition over the last several months. It's good to know that all of us recognize how important small businesses are to the economic success of our city. We have shown you that our services can and have made a difference in the lives of tens of thousands of your constituents over the many years that we've been serving them. I believe that you understand that we aren't just talking about run-of-the-mill businesses and properties. We are talking about professionals offering eye care, dental care, acupuncture and wellness care, tax services, real estate services, and internationally acclaimed martial arts training. More importantly, we are talking about professionals who have chosen to invest in property in Santa Ana, have worked hard at building their livelihoods in the city of Santa Ana, and for some, have chosen to make Santa Ana their home. We believe in our work, we believe in serving the community, and we are committed to remaining here. Tonight you'll be hearing from some of our owners. They will be covering several important points, and we really do hope you will listen to us. Please keep in mind that the Coalition has always been focused on one thing, collaboration with the city to minimize the impact of the road widening on our businesses. We have brought suggestions and alternatives to the table, and we have asked for feedback from city staff. The city staff, while always being respectful, have never offered any viable alternative other than for us to walk away from hundreds of years of service and start over somewhere else. So, while we have been talking and making suggestions in good faith, if it does not appear that anyone has really been listening, we hope you will listen tonight. We are 100% positive we can work this out. We are 100% positive we can have a beautiful street and attractive office buildings as well. All we need is a willing partner. We ask nothing more than to be allowed to continue our work on Bristol Street, to do what we love to do, and to serve this community for which we care so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I believe, Robert, you're next, followed by Lon. You're an architect, Lon, and I can't quite read your last name, but you know who you are.
Lon Bike is his name.
Please.
So, I'm Dr. Robert Gonzalez, the optometrist on Bristol Street. Good evening, council members, mayor, and Mr. Cavazos. I would like to draw your attention to what is creating confusion regarding the Bristol Street corridor redevelopment project. 25 years ago, there was a co-mingling of two projects. One, the transportation project, which requires a 120-foot wide right-of-way, and two, the redevelopment project, whose goal was to put a commercial strip center where our businesses now exist. In February of 1988, Santa Ana's Community Redevelopment Agency presented a draft EIR that made the distinction between the redevelopment agency plan and the street widening project. That EIR states, quote, "The proposed redevelopment project involves 781 acres along Bristol Street," and it goes on to say, "A separate but associated project within the project involves the widening of Bristol Street from 4 to 6 lanes with a landscape median," end quote. A 120-foot right-of-way is a standard at federal, state, and county levels. It was a standard in 1988, is a standard now. Bristol Street widening south of us has been completed with a 120-foot wide right-of-way. 17th Street and 1st Street were completed with the same 120-foot wide right-of-way. And on these two streets, there are pubs, restaurants, realty offices, doctor's offices, the back of a sidewalk. These buildings were not leveled, and the difference here is that our property is being eyed for a strip mall. Redevelopment no longer exists because it had many major flaws. 25 years ago, our properties were proclaimed blighted. Our properties were not and are not blighted. We had more thriving businesses on the block at that time. With the cloud of eminent domain looming over us, we have been held hostage. We could no longer get permits to improve or expand, and the banks would not loan on our buildings. Redevelopment tramples on property rights. It forces the sale of land to others so that they may use it. It distorts the open, free market system that America's success was built upon. And it squashes the small business person, the entrepreneurial American spirit. So build a road, a 120-foot right-of-way is all that is needed. Let us use our property without fear of seizure and lift the cloud of eminent domain and let the business owners get back to work serving the community. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Lon, followed by Geronimo Chavez.
Good evening, City Council members. My name's Lon Bike. I'm the architect who's been working with the Business Association on North Bristol in order to come up with some alternative designs for the widening of the street that would allow the businesses to remain in place with some minor modifications to the structures, but it would not force the business owners to leave their property and go some other place in the city or perhaps even into another city. We've looked at the proposed plans by the Public Works staff, and we believe that the 120-foot right-of-way will accommodate all the requirements for the widening of North Bristol. It'll provide for 3 northbound lanes of traffic and southbound lanes. It'll provide for the 14-foot wide median in the middle. It'll also provide for 2 bike lanes, north and southbound, and a 10-foot sidewalk on each side of the street from the curb. So the curb-to-curb dimension will be 100 feet, and then the ultimate right-of-way would be 120. And this would allow the majority of those buildings on the east side of Bristol to remain in place and not have to be taken over by eminent domain and removed from the area. We think this is a viable alternative, and we can accommodate some of the landscape requirements, some of the urbanscape requirements, and in fact, I think we'll probably in some areas exceed the expectation of the city plan. And we welcome the opportunity to work with city staff. They've been very cooperative. They've met with us a number of times, and we look forward to continuing that relationship. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. If you can be available, if we have questions, we'll call upon you.
Thank you.
Geronimo Chavez, followed by John Palacio.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, distinguished council members, city manager, Mr. Cavazos. Thank you. My name is Geronimo Chavez. I am a real estate broker doing business in Santa Ana for about 24 years. In the last few months, up to last night, I check on available commercial properties in our city and also on the surrounding cities around Santa Ana, and looking for prices, properties in the price that the city offered to each one of our members here. And I found 0 properties available to move our business to and relocate. And I also found 0 properties that have sold in the last 4 months. What that really means to us, if we want to continue owning the properties where we operate our businesses, we must perhaps relocate to San Bernardino, Riverside counties, and perhaps replacing our properties with properties that are not comparable to what we have right now. In doing so, basically Santa Ana will not only chase us out of Santa Ana, it will also chase us out of the county, and perhaps for some of the members, it will mean that they will chase us out of business. We strongly believe that the property and business owners believe that this is our city too. This is the community where we have invested in our properties, where we have invested in our businesses to provide services for our community. This is our way of life. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and City Manager, Mr. Cavazos, would you please work with us? Thank you.
Thank you, and we will. And we've met with you, and we'll continue to work. John Palacio, please, followed by Marcus Nelson.
Members of the Mayor and Council, Mr. Cavazos, thank you for this opportunity. I think we all agree that we need to widen Bristol Street. It's beautiful. We're doing a good job. You only need 100 feet. Not 150, not 128. The numbers get smaller as we see the city's plans and as we question the city's plans at all. You need 72 feet for 6 lanes. You need 14 feet for the center median, 14 feet for the bike lanes. That's 100 feet. You need 10 feet for a sidewalk, and you need 6 feet for the landscaping. Remember, you don't need it on the east side, on the west side, because the college, you're not going to touch the college. It's 116 feet is what you need. We were challenged by the city to find a document. We found it. On October 17th, 1989, ordinance number NS 2039, Section 2, Purpose and Intent. Number 5, this is the goal of Bristol Street. Let me read it to you. The retention and expansion of as many existing businesses as possible by the means of redevelopment and rehabilitation activities, and by encouraging and assisting the cooperation and participation of owners, businesses, and public agencies in the revitalization of the project area. That was your goal. And I think it can still be your goal. The question becomes as to can you work with us? Are you willing to work with us? We believe you can. We're not saying no, but this is what makes it different. We're not saying no to you. We said, yeah, let's widen Bristol. But we went a step further. We gave you a plan that we have not had a response from the city. A plan that allows the expansion of Bristol, that allows the landscaping and sidewalks that mirror the college, while at the same time maintaining the businesses that we have. We want to thank the city and the council in particular, because if it wasn't for you, 2 months ago, McDonald's would have been in the domain under your current plans. And, so I think that's important to understand, that it's in your hands. It's in the council hands to direct the city staff to do what's best in the interest of this community while accommodating its goals in terms of transportations, and then, while at the same time accommodating businesses, because it is businesses that maintain the economic flow, economic engine to sustain government services. And that's all we're asking. And we want to thank you for your consideration, but it's in your hands. Please direct the city council to work with us. The city to work with us, because they have not responded to our plans. They've said no.
Thank you for your comments, John. Marcus Nelson, followed by Thomas Gordon.
Mayor, council, what an excellent opportunity this is to be a part of this opportunity to speak to you regarding the, I'm talking about the sound wall. I am just a man that happens to live on the east side of Louise Street, going to butt up right against where the strip malls and all that jazz is going. What I'm talking about, especially, Councilman Reyna, you discussed about the opportunity of living in Santa Ana and living the American dream. I am living the American dream with my lovely bride and my 2 girls and my other girl on the way. And I tell you what, I don't want that to end with bars on my window. Okay? And that's what's going to happen if we don't put up that sound wall. The sound wall isn't so much just to keep away the sound and to have things look good. It is for the opportunity to keep the bad guys away. And as a man that has lovely women in his life, that is my job, is to keep the bad guys away. And I also look to Santa Ana Police to take care of that too. But please, remember, always, that we are counting on you to protect us also. You are also our barrier. A sound barrier, but also a barrier for safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Gordon, are you still here?
Yes, he is.
No worries. Go ahead, please.
Happy New Year to everybody. I'm here to speak on item 25A, I believe it is, the Utility Cabinet Art Program Selection Committee. I support doing artwork on utility cabinets, but I just wanted to make sure that we actually take the time and do it right. I know that we're in the process of forming a commission, an arts commission. I want to make sure that the arts commission has a say on it, and I think it would be a wise idea that the neighborhoods also have a say on what's going to be painted in front of your house. If you came out and there was some crazy Scottish-looking dude painted on the utility box in front of your house and he's going to be there for the next 50 years, you might be a little agitated. So maybe if the neighborhoods had some input on what was going on to their boxes, that would be a helpful thing, and then it could go to the Arts Commission, and then make sure that we put some kind of graffiti coating on them, because I know we're going to spend $700, I think, per box. So we're talking $5,000 of taxpayer money, and those boxes often have graffiti all over them. So it'd be a shame to have beautiful artwork that's a positive thing for our city to be destroyed by graffiti vandals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. And with that, I will direct our attention back to our agenda. And what I'm going to do right now is ask on the consent calendar, are there any items? Any council members? Councilor Martinez?
Yes, Mayor, 25A and 25J.
You want to pull those?
Yes.
I'm 70, yeah, but that's, oh, you wanted public comment also?
Mr.
All right,
Mayor.
Zeke, let me just hold a moment, Mayor Pro Tem. Zeke, you want to speak twice under public comment and under item 75A? Or are you okay one time?
As I understand it, there was a request to have the speaker.
Go ahead, speak into the mic.
As I understand it, there was a request to have the speaker speak during this, right before the study session. So if you're taking the speakers right now for that study session, that's okay. I would be included on there. When I completed my form.
Yeah, it says downtown business levy, and it also says Bristol Street business, and it says 75A.
Yeah, I didn't put 75A, but I put the.
All right, so the staff put 75A.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So.
I'll call you right up before the work study.
You're allowing the other individuals to speak right before the study.
Yes, I'll call you right back right before, unless you want to speak now, so you can get it over with.
No, I think it's better as you have to study session.
Although most of these folks already spoke about the work WSA. All the speakers we just had, all the green cards, most of them wanted to speak about, the work study WSA. So just speak right now.
Please help us then.
Go ahead, speak now.
The individuals who spoke just now would have wanted to speak right before the study session. Do they have that
That'll be
opportunity?
in a few moments. I think
They will
everything
have
will
that
go very
opportunity
quickly.
again?
If they have additional comment, but we're going to be on the work study session in a few moments.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
We'll do it at study session.
Thank you. So with that, Mayor Pro Tem, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to abstain on 25J.
Please note that, Madam Clerk.
I might have received a contribution, I'm not sure.
That's my issue as well. On 25J, I have to recuse myself. I live within 500 feet.
And I believe Councilmember Vince Sarmiento, did you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. On item 10A, which are the minutes, this is more directed for Madam Clerk. This is referencing the previous council meetings, minutes for the December 16th, 2013 meeting. Calendar item on that agenda, 12A, the public hearing on the downtown Santa Ana bid. The minutes reflect that I abstained, and I believe that's an error. I believe that the mayor abstained, and Councilmember Martinez and the others were there. I just wanted to note that for the record for that correction.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'm just struggling, Madam Clerk and Ms. City Attorney, because I believe I saw something in here that maybe I need to abstain on as it relates to the property on East First Street. Maybe Councilor Martinez, 25J. So let me abstain as well on that item, please. So with that, I want to entertain a motion on the balance.
So moved.
Second.
Any comment? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. So with that, now I believe Councilor Martinez, 25A.
Yes, I had a question, and I brought up the issue the last time in regards to the process, and I know that we have the names of the people that were selected to do. As I was looking at the artist renderings, I'm a bit confused, and maybe because of the way it's laid out in the report that was presented to us. Some of the renderings, for whatever reason, and I'm not an artist, but there's some that appeal to beach-like, to the Golden City, and then we have another one that has all these pictures of folks, and so I don't know what exactly our intent was of what we wanted to put in those utility boxes, if it's going to be a reflection of the city of Santa Ana, or we were just opening it up that anybody can go ahead and provide any art rendering that they so choose. So if staff can please approach us and please.
Why don't I call in
explain
Karen
this.
Haluzzo? Do you
Thank
think that'd be appropriate?
Yes.
Okay. Karen, we all decided that you're the appropriate person to address this. Thank you.
Members of the council, I wasn't
directly involved in the selection process, but I have been briefed on it a bit, and the intention was to really open it up to a wide variety of artistic expression. There really wasn't a particular goal or criteria that was established for the selection of the art pieces. They were selected based on the consensus of the selection committee themselves. And each of the renderings, they are a little bit hard to visualize. If you can see those drawings, it says top and then right, left, and side. So if you were to sort of cut one of those out and fold it, you'd be able to see what was going to be painted on the top and then on each side. So they do represent a very broad range of artistic expression, and that really was the intention of the project.
Okay, I'm not sure if there's more council comment before I make a recommendation about this specific, my concerns in regards to the art renderings.
Let me take other comment, then we'll come back to that, please. Councilman Vince Sarmiento, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank staff for working this up and presenting the recommendation to us. But I do want to reflect upon on the comments that were made by Thomas Gordon. I think they're well received. Art is in the eye of the beholder. I mean, somebody's art is somebody else's, lack of art. And the uniqueness and the beauty of our city is that our neighborhoods are so diverse, and one part of town is very different from another, and so our tastes vary, and it should be that way. That's the beauty of our diversity. But I think when this council decided to found a commission dealing with arts and culture, this is exactly the type of issue that. This is exactly the type of issue that commission should be addressing. And I think since there isn't any urgency in this, I think it's a good idea to have some comment by the neighborhoods. I think there's a good opportunity for the commission to take this, and maybe this is one of the first objectives that the commission could address, and how we go about finding artists, how we go about deciding what type of art is going to be placed in what neighborhood. I think it's a good initial project for the commissioners to deal with, but I just see that, again, I think it's a good representation of what type of art we could see, but I think there should be some more opportunity for residents to comment, because they are going to be dealing with this and appreciating it, and hopefully they can opine on what type of art they'd like to see in their neighborhood. Again, we have such a varied array of neighborhoods in the city, so that's just something for us to chew on. But I don't think that this is anything that's time sensitive, is it, Ms. Alusa?
No, it really isn't. We were trying to be responsive to the City Council and continue to move this process forward, but as you know, as this was going along, it began the conversation about having an Arts Council, which has now been established. So it would be a very appropriate step to have this now go back and be reviewed by them. The two things were happening parallel to each other, and so this just was going on its own path. So, but no, there is not any particular time urgency.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me take more comment, then we'll come back. Let me call on Councilmember David Benavides, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there are a couple various options that we can take here. We did have an opportunity as a council to speak to this item before. It did come before us, at least on one, I think maybe a couple of occasions. One of the recommended actions that was implemented was to have a committee of people that were not part of the council, basically an independent committee, similar to what will be the Arts Commission, review the applications that came in. They vetted them, they looked at them, and as was mentioned by one of the council members, it's. I think whenever we look at art, there's going to be some modes of expression that some of us will agree with and find that appeals to us, and others that, for one reason or another, it may not be our taste. In this case, we only have 7. It's sort of a pilot. Well, it is essentially a pilot. It's a pilot. It's 7 boxes of. I don't know if you have, Ms. Alusa, a number of total utility boxes in the downtown, but this is specific to the downtown. Part of what was discussed by the ad hoc committee of the council is to come back after this initial pilot, there's mention about going out to the neighborhoods. Well, this is specific to downtown. This is not going out to the different neighborhoods in the city. The recommendation by the committee was to have the different council districts later identify utility box as sort of a second phase of the pilot. And perhaps we take that rather than going, and that would be something where council would have been able to be more involved and identify the specific utility box within their ward. But perhaps the recommendation would be to, rather than go that route, just send that to the commission. But at this point, basically, we have an opportunity to move forward. There was an independent committee, similar to an arts commission, that had the opportunity to vet, to look at this. They're making a recommendation. It's only 7 of the initial boxes out of hundreds of them throughout the city. My recommendation is that we go ahead and let the expression happen, start just getting some momentum. We can slow this down, but again, sometimes we can kind of tend to complicate things and make things, basically do what's typical of sort of government and make things go really, really slow. Part of the idea was to actually get the momentum, the activity, the energy, the artistic expression out there as soon as possible, and just to, again, celebrate what's going on already within the city and within the downtown. So given all that, I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and move forward, and any further phase does go, that it does go to the Art Commission.
I'll come back and entertain more comment, but is there a second to the motion? I'll second. Okay. So with that, let's continue comment, and we'll come back. We're not going to vote. We'll come back to Councilman Martinez. But Councilman Reyna, I believe, did you want to speak?
Sure. Definitely appreciate the comments that my colleague mentioned. We did go through a process to get us here. I think this is a great project. It is a pilot program. Will be our opportunity to work out whatever kinks as we move forward. But I think it's definitely going to bring additional energy to our community. And I said it's only 7 out of the ones that we're going forward. So I'll be supporting it as we move forward.
Thank you. Let me come back to Councilor Martinez, please.
Yes, Mayor. I just want to make it very clear that I'm not against the art or their expression, but as we talk as a full council and about Councilman Benavides, how we're wanting to brand the downtown and the city, we need to be very specific and detailed in the new direction that we want to take when we're saying that we want expressions of what is Santa Ana. If this is what Santa Ana is and we're defining it, then we accept that. But if it's, and we're setting literally a precedent by approving this artwork and saying that this is what Santa Ana reflects in the downtown, and are we okay with it? And that's what I'm trying to project here today, is this the direction that we're wanting to take? I have nothing against the art. I'm not an artist. Everyone has their own art expression and what they want. But from a council policy decision, is this the kind of artwork that is going to define the downtown? This is specifically in the downtown. I certainly understand that we have a second phase, but is this city council okay with what this says here and the art expression in these utility boxes, that this represents the downtown? I personally don't think that it does, and so I can't be supportive, and I would like to continue it where the commission will be able to review this and really know what is it that we want as an expression of what the downtown really means with these utility boxes.
Is that a motion, council member?
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a substitute motion. Who wishes to speak to either motion? Councilor Mezcua?
I was just thinking, how much should we as a council get involved in selecting them? I think that's a question we have to consider. No.
I'm not.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's my question. I mean, how involved do we get in the selection process? I don't think it should come from us. It should come from the committee or the commission once it's formed. And I know I stepped out for a couple of minutes, so I might have missed some stuff here, but when I stepped out.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes, please.
No, I think the council member has an excellent point. I guess the discussion really isn't the content of the art or the selection of the artists per se. It's the process. And I think when we began this, I think it did sort of begin before. I guess the better sequence would have been that we empower the commission to address this as one of its objectives first and allow that to happen. Unfortunately, we sort of put a project before the commission that we are now in the process of convening. We're all in the process of selecting commissioners that will represent the council and the community as a group, and they should be bestowed with that responsibility to make this a good selection. Because if this is a pilot project, let's do it right the first time. Let's not just get it done. There isn't any urgency to this. There isn't any funds that are going to go away as a function of this. The funds will be there, as I believe the interim director of planning said, that there isn't any time sensitivity to this. I don't know why there is, an immediate necessity to do it. I think right now we could do the responsible thing, which is to make sure we do it right. That way, as a program does expand, we have a good template to work from. And I think that's the responsible thing for us to do, especially since we're in the process of convening a commission that's going to be responsible for these specific arts projects. So that's my only thing. And I would also want to show some deference to my colleague who represents that ward where these first boxes will be painted.
Let me take additional comment, Councilmember. I believe it's Roman Reina.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There was a subcommittee that was created before the conversation took place of the Arts Commission. So that subcommittee started to have that vision of bringing in art downtown Santa Ana, which is already moving in that direction. What that art exactly looks like, I'm not an art person. But what's in front of me is definitely the vision that we're looking at and moving forward and showcasing our skills and our abilities of our residents and complementing what's already taken downtown Santa Ana. The process was in place. We followed the process. We had independent individuals that selected it. It wasn't coming from the council itself. To be honest, I'm pleased with the process. As we move forward and we look at the Art and Culture Commission to eventually take this under their umbrella, there's going to be a process before we even select members of that particular committee. And it may take 3 months, 6 months, not quite sure. But I think we're at the threshold right now and we're ready to move forward. And I don't see major issues or challenges why we shouldn't go forward with this. So I'd be recommended that we stay with the direction that we're going in now.
Thank you. If we've had enough comment, let me just add something. Then what I'll do is I'll take on the substitute motion first, and if that fails, we'll go back to the original motion. If it passes, then we're done for now. And what I want to do is I want to speak against the substitute motion and for the original motion. And the reason is I think it's very dangerous when we begin micromanaging. And we have had, I believe, what's been a good process. This is a small project. We're not talking about all the boxes in the downtown or in the city or anything like that. It's just a pilot project, and frankly, it's gone a little bit slow as we've been trying to bring this about. And I believe if we are going to try to say, well, we're going to brand the city a particular way, all of a sudden we're getting into the content of the art. And we kind of laid out some parameters. I think those have been followed. So I would agree with Councilmember Reina and say I think we've had a good process. Let's move on. There's a lot of art left to be done. There's a lot of issues left to be addressed, and we go from there. So with that, if we're ready to vote, let's those in favor of the substitute motion, please say aye.
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 That's 3 ayes. Those opposed, no?
We're voting on the substitute, which is Michelle Martinez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Martinez's.
Yes.
To move forward with the way it is now.
No.
To stop.
Councilmember Benavides is to
sorry.
move forward with the way it is
Original
now.
motion, okay.
Can you explain it?
I just have a quick question before I vote. How long is it going to take to get the Arts Commission off and running? Up and running.
I think he wants to answer the question. Mayor, member of City Council, it's going to take several months. We haven't finished the appointment process. We have individuals that are very interested, but they still have to be nominated by the council.
Right.
And you have to have, so it's going to be several months away.
Well, given that it's going to take several months, and I think this is just a pilot program, I think I'm going to go ahead and support.
All right, so you'll vote no on the substitute motion. So that fails 4-3. And I'll come back to the original motion. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
We have 2 noes. Councilmember, I believe, Sarmiento and Martinez. Mayor Pro Tem voted yes. because I know the clerk told me she wants to know exactly how people are voting, so I'm helping her out. So with that, let's move on to the next item. And Madam Clerk, help me out. That would be, we're beyond the consent calendar now. 75A, this is time and place. I want to call to order a public hearing to consider the 2014 Business Improvement District Assessment. And Madam
Mayor?
Clerk, should I abstain on this and turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem? Okay, so I'll call it to order, but I'm going to at this point abstain. And
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and abstain from this as well because
so then we'll turn it over to the guy that wanted to be mayor last time. Would that be Councilor Benavides?
I'll take it.
You got it.
Please note, I have to recuse myself. I live within 500 feet of this property management district that you guys are trying to conclude, and I think it's also very important that the rest of my colleagues also state why they're recusing themselves.
I'm recusing myself because of the interest at 401 East First Street.
Receipt of a campaign contribution.
So at this time, I'd like to call to order a public hearing to consider the 2014 Downtown Business Improvement District Assessment. Do we have a presentation with staff?
Yes. Mr. Members of the City Council, members of the audience, tonight we are considering the 2014 Downtown Business Improvement District Assessment. And in last December, December 16th, the City Council approved the assessment report and budget for the Downtown Santa Ana Business Improvement District. The Council also adopted a resolution for the intention to levy the assessment pursuant to California State and Highway Code Section 35600, and also schedule a public hearing to consider the protest action, which is tonight. The business owner impacted by this assessment district may present written or oral protest during the public hearing. So for tonight, staff is recommending that the council conduct a public hearing to consider all the protests, to review the written protest, and if the council determines that there is no valid majority of the protest, then we should adopt the resolution to confirm the assessment report. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Fong. At this point, then, we will go ahead and open the public hearing. Would now like to hear from members of the public who would be interested in speaking on this item. If you would like to do so, if you would please complete one of the speaker forms. Do we have any speaker forms, Madam Clerk? So we do have.
Yes.
The one from Mr. Hernandez, Zeke Hernandez. Is this an item you'd like to speak on?
Thank you. Members of the City Council, my name is Zeke Hernandez. I'm a native of Santa Ana. Also a past president of the Downtown Santa Ana Business Association. And so at the last council meetings, you have received comments from various business owners within the downtown immediate area, and they were all favorable. So I think that you should go into a public hearing, take into consideration those who do not wish to be on that lengthy list of business owners who will be paying that levy. And then later on, if you look at the budget again that they've provided, I think you're going to be discussing that a little later on, is that sit down with the Business Council and the Downtown Inc. to look at their budget, to really refine it, because if you look at the budgets, I think there's a lot of changes that can be made so that the two associations can be more effective in promoting the downtown area. But again, I'm in favor of the public hearing you're going to be having, and plus the levy that you may be imposing on. Okay, but special consideration to those businesses, and I don't know how you're going to do it, who do not wish to participate. You know, you might have to tell them they have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. And again, just to clarify for the record, every potential member or a business owner that would be potentially levied received notification and that this was the opportunity for them to come and speak and to protest, correct?
For the record, a legal notice was published in the paper, but no notices were sent out to individual businesses.
Okay, so it was legal notice published in the paper as well as obvious publication through the City Council agenda being made public and posted. Any other further written communication or any further members of the public that have submitted cards to speak, Madam Clerk?
I have not received any.
So at this point, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Has there been any written communication that we have received?
No, we have not.
Okay, so at this point, then we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for any further questions or comments, discussion. Any members of the council would like to speak or seek further feedback from staff? So I do have a question.
Councilmember, I do have a question.
Go ahead. Mr. Sarmiento.
Just for staff, and thank you, Mr. City Manager, for providing both the budget for Downtown Inc. and the Business Council. My only question is I know that all business improvement districts in the state of California are governed by the Streets and Highways Code, and the only expenses that could be made under that code section are for capital improvements, maintenance, security, and promotions. Do we know what percentage? I can't see anything here that's been allocated for maintenance and security, and I know when discussions were had before, one of the reasons why it was important for the city to work with groups like the ones that we've designated to represent the downtown in the bid is because there are certain issues that all businesses could enjoy. One of them is safety, and the other one are just a clean environment. So those two were, I think, so broad that that everybody could have some benefit to the assistance of the bid district assessment. Do we know if there's going to be any changes to these budgets to allocate for those two line items?
Councilman, and I'm going to turn to Nancy. Nancy, maybe you should emphasize not only the budgets, but any other funding that's used to do the safety and the cleanliness of the downtown.
Yes, besides the budget for the two downtown association, there is also the Clean and Safe program that was formed based on the downtown business improvement district settlement agreement, and it consists of 6 members, 2 from the staff, 2 from each from the business association, downtown business association, and that Safe and Clean would provide the general maintenance of the downtown area, removing the trash, graffiti, cleaning up the sidewalk. I think that's the intent of the Safe and Clean program.
But those costs for those two, for the Clean and Safe, is that borne by the city according to that contract?
I believe so. That's
okay.
Not from the budget, from the business assessment district that are passed through to the 2 associations.
Okay. So then, if those 2 items are addressed by the Clean and Safe program, the only 2 items then that these 2 organizations or these 2 corporations can deal with are promotions and
special
capital
events, and to benefit the downtown area and the decorations of the downtown. Those are the various things that they could do with the budget.
Madam City Attorney, can you remind me? Do you know? Does that agreement for the Clean and Safe, does that run not in perpetuity, but does it run in concurrence with these contracts, or when does that expire?
We had a 3-year agreement on the operation of those items. Part of the settlement agreement was for the council to approve these bid programs to get these 2 organizations off the ground, and hope that these organizations could then leverage support from others in the downtown, and that they could eventually assume those responsibilities. So the city agreed to assume the responsibilities for Clean and Safe for that period of time, in hopes that the programs would get started down there and that you would not be subsidizing in the long run.
Got it. Okay. Just so long as we make the organizations understand that this is a transition period where those responsibilities are not ours to be borne for,
for forever, yes.
Right, for an extended period of time. This is just during the transition period that they're getting started. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for other members of staff?
I have one.
Councilwoman
real quick. This is for our city clerk. We said this
budget was only, what was it that you mentioned was posted on our, I heard you say it was posted, but no actual letters were delivered?
Yes, that's correct. The legal notice was published in the paper as required by
Right.
the California Government Code, but notices were not mailed to individual businesses.
I'll remind the council how this works. Remember, as part of the settlement agreement, you agreed to form this bid program, and in order for the bid to be formed, the business owners in that area had to approve. And so when you first created this bid, there was a process we went through which involved specific notice to each business. What you're doing now in these subsequent years is just renewing, so you're not reforming.
Okay.
And so since you are just renewing what was already done, legal publication in the newspaper is sufficient by
Oh, okay.
law. If at any time you want to go above and beyond, that would be something that you'd need to talk to the city manager about in terms of expense and desire to do that.
Okay,
But
no, I just
you met
needed
all
some
legal
clarification.
requirements, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I do have a question for staff here. So we're looking at about $200,000 is what estimated that would be the proceeds from the bid, Business Improvement District, that would then be split between the two entities, Downtown Inc. and the Santa Ana Business Association. We have listed in the staff report here some of one of the main things would be supporting events that the business owners and the business associations want to have to be able to promote their businesses, promote the downtown, the activities down there, to bring patrons, shoppers in. In the list of the two items, or the list of events that each of the two entities submitted, there's some overlap. At the last, I think last meeting or two meetings back, I made some comments that, as to Councilman Sarmiento's point, this is the intent of the council and the city was to help these organizations get off the ground, again, to continue to promote our downtown, help our businesses do well. But ultimately, if to the degree that we continue to have almost competing organizations, entities, there's only so much we're going to be able to accomplish. There's always going to be to the degree that we're basically unified and together, we'll be able to accomplish more ultimately. And my hope, my desire is that we would be able to eventually have a broader unified association. And what's unique or what's interesting is that they both talk about supporting arts. That there's art walks in Downtown Inc. and there's an art fair in Santa Ana Business Council. There's a film festival on the Santa Ana Business Council. There's a film festival that Downtown Inc. is indicating that they want to support. There's an Noche de Altares, which is Day of the Dead event, Santa Ana Business Council, and there's a Day of the Dead that Downtown Inc. is also looking to do. So clearly, they do have overlap. They do have shared interest. I'm going to be supporting this item, but my recommendation of staff is to really work hard at trying to ideally have at least a couple of these events that they can, maybe not everything right off the bat, but to the degree that we can have them come together and see that, they can actually accomplish more where there are similarities. So ideally, again, that there would be at least a couple, at least two, maybe more events. Already, again, as I listed, there's at least 3 or 4 that each of them have listed that do overlap. So let's do everything we can, and I don't know if we can condition it. I don't know, maybe that's a question for the city attorney, whether we can condition, whether we should go that route. City manager, I think you want to make some comments.
Thank you, Council. This is something that we listened to very carefully. We're working on it. We did have a successful December event. I've been working very closely with the Parks Director to program the Plaza Santa Ana, and the direction is to work with these two groups together to co-program, and we hope that builds on its successes and that we continue to integrate. I think in this case, we do have 2 organizations with 2 different work products. We will work very hard to keep them together, to eliminate duplication. So I think we do ask for your approval of this with the understand that the goal is to have one organization eventually and to do everything we can in the interim to have these groups work together.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? I voted aye as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and ask Mayor Pro Tem and Councilman Martinez to come back to the chamber so we can go ahead and continue with the rest of our meeting. In the meantime, as they come back here, we can move to item 80A. Do we have, so at this point we don't have any staff presentation on this one, right? Go ahead and hand it over to the Mayor.
Thank you for that. We were watching next door on TV. So with that, Madam Clerk, are we on 80A? Is that where we are right now? Okay. So I'm going to recess City Council meeting called for a joint session of the City Council and the Industrial Development Authority and entertain a motion on item 80A.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passed 6-0. With that, let's go on, and we're going to adjourn and have a joint session and convene the Housing Authority meeting. Should we excuse Councilor Tinajero, or do you think he might be coming in? What would the pleasure of the council be? Councilor Sarmiento?
I'll make a motion to excuse his
All right.
presence.
So let's
Second.
So we'll recuse him. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Oh, here he comes.
Oh.
We just recused you because we didn't know if you're going to be in here, Mayor Pro Tem. So now you're here, so this is better. So what do we do with that previous vote? Can you do that, or do you want us to? You can? Okay. So with that, we're going to adjourn, and we now have a joint session, and we've convened the Housing Authority meeting. I will entertain a motion on consent calendar item 1 and 2. We have a motion and a second. Second by Reina. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Seeing no comments from the public or council members, I'm going to adjourn and convene the Industrial Development Authority meeting and entertain a motion on consent calendar item 1, which is the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We're now going to come to the work-study session, and I know that, Zeke, do you want to speak again on that? Why don't you talk right now, and then I'll turn it over to our city manager, and he will lead us through that discussion.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, earlier I had also wanted to emphasize the point that the other speaker spoke during the public.
We remember what they said,
so they
Zeke.
have.
We got it.
They have an opportunity to speak right now, also.
If they want to
wish
speak,
so,
yeah,
okay,
but
thank
they've
you.
spoken several times. We've met with them. We know what their thoughts are. Please, let's just continue.
Okay, continuing. My name's Zeke Hernandez. I'm President of Santa Ana Lulac League of United Latin American Citizens. As you know, I had written previously a communication in support of the businesses. I think it is important to reemphasize the words that Judge Paul Gray said earlier, and I take that portion he says where we need to stop the bleeding in Santa Ana and in various cases we have. But I think we also need to look at the bleeding of Santa Ana in terms of businesses that are being opted or being forced to leave the city of Santa Ana. I won't get into the situation in terms of Grand Avenue. You all are familiar with that. As a property business owner, our tenant has been forced to move her business out of the city of Santa Ana because she could not relocate in the city of Santa Ana. She's now in the city of Anaheim. But if you look at eventually Grand Avenue and then Bristol Street, if you look down shades, I think of shades of the March to Atlanta. But I think that the city council can right now provide direction to staff and initiate a discussion, a discourse with the current businesses that are there and speaking to you through staff right now, so that we can somehow develop a step forward in terms of hopefully putting together a policy for future policy in terms of what the city's stand is when it comes to eminent domain or any other businesses that fall within the path of progress. There is the need for the city council in this study session. I really believe that there's a need by the city council to direct staff. I don't know if there's a written policy in terms of how city staff works with businesses that are impacted. I would think that there is no written policy right now. So I think you need to direct staff to somehow formulate, to have a real study session where they're able to have a dialogue and to formulate a road on how, a path in terms of how we go on Bristol Street. You don't have that now, and because you don't have that policy, staff is going back to their plan of 20, 30, 40 years ago and saying, because you don't have that policy, we got to stick to that plan 20, 30 years ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zeke. Any other speakers on this item that I know everybody spoke earlier? Tom, you have something you got to say? Okay. Come on down, and then if staff can be prepared in just a moment, I'll turn things over to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's more of a question than anything, because Zeke brings up a good point. A study session is usually a give and take, that the people that are being affected by a project gets to ask questions and, a dialogue of interchange. Are we going to be able to have that?
Let me turn over to staff, and we'll go from there. And look, this is a study session. There can also be subsequent meetings. I know I've been involved in several of those, and I'm sure we're going to have more before we're done here. But thank you.
Because with the coalition wanting to do something and listen the cut, or the take, I should say, that brings up questions. If their buildings stay, what happens to the sound wall? This is going to be then on their private property. Are we going to be able to build a sound wall on their private property? Questions like that arise. Other questions, I'm sure, will come out depending on...
What I would suggest is if any question you can't get answered right now, make sure you write it down, communicate it in the morning to staff, and we will follow up on everything.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, let me turn it over to our city manager, David Cavazos, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. For a point of emphasis, we have met probably 11, 12, maybe 13 times with the individuals impacted. We definitely want to thank the council members for their leadership. They coordinated the meetings. And in the last meeting that we had with these groups, we've answered every question that was presented, and we're committed to doing that going forward. So these kinds of questions we can ask. We do have a complete streets program that requires the kinds of setbacks and the size of the lanes and the medians that are required, and that'll be presented today so people know the extent of the improvements that are being requested. The impacts are significant to the businesses if we're going to have the complete street programs. In many cases, the requirements go right through the buildings themselves, so the impacts are significant. There is an addendum that's going to be discussed. The sole purpose of the addendum is to build the wall that's so highly desirable by the community. That's the purpose of the addendum. So we're very interested in the council direction, input, discussion. We're committed to following up with the businesses and the coalition after today. But with that, I want William and Jason to give an overview of the project. And I think it's very important, Mayor and members of City Council, that you see visually the impacts of this project.
Please go ahead, but before William begins, Councilman Martinez,
yes,
I believe,
Mayor,
had a
just
comment.
real quickly, since two members of the public asked, I would like to ask our city attorney if she could please just give us the protocol on study sessions, and if there can be dialogue with the council and the public while this study session is in session.
So the work study session can be designed any way that the council desires, primarily the way that's planned by the presentation from your city manager. I think is more important in this case because they have staff prepared to make a presentation to answer questions. My concern just is that we comply with the Brown Act, and this is noticed as a work study session, not as a meeting where you're taking action on items. I think it's very important for the public to understand that. This is an opportunity to present information and to have a conversation about what additional information needs to be looked at by staff or requests by the council. But this is not a night where we're going to make decisions, because that's not what's noticed on the agenda. Whether you want to take comments, whether you want to put time limits, is completely up to the chair. And
I think Councilor Martinez is more talking about that it can be a potential dialogue, that if there's a discussion that's made, maybe we can refer to that and bounce things around. I don't think she's talking about voting on absolutely anything.
Correct. I just wanted to make sure that as the chair, Mayor Polito, you have the option to have the dialogue with the community as we move forward with this study session, is all.
And I intend to do so, but I also believe that there's probably going to have to be subsequent meetings, because the nature of this stuff is complicated, and in the morning somebody's going to get up and say, I have a different idea, I want to discuss it, and we have to be prepared to do that. We've had 13 meetings with the community, I think, according to what the city manager said earlier. I guarantee you there's going to be more before it's over, and that's the nature of the process, and it's a good thing. We need that feedback. We need that input. We need to reach a compromise that works well for everybody. So with that, William, I know you've been waiting. Let's turn it over to you, please.
Great. Hope we make this short and sweet, direct to the point. My name is William Galvez. I'm the interim Public Works Director. With me is Jason Gabriel. He's the principal engineer in charge of design, and he's the lead person on the project. The presentation is broken up into two parts. One is going to be talking about the addendum, and then the second part, which I'll handle, will be talking about the Bristol Coalition concerns between Washington and 17th on Bristol. So before you is Jason.
Thank you, William. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. As William mentioned, there's going to be two parts to this. I'm going to focus on the addendum to the environmental document, and as our city manager alluded to,
Can we get the rest of the lights, because it's bizarre right now. We've got lights on us, and then it's dark, and it'll be easier to see the screen, I think. So if we can just get these, we don't need to see anything right now on paper. I don't know who's handling that, but if we can get the lights off on the council, I'd appreciate it. And now they're all on. Look, if that's what you can do, that's okay. Please continue.
so the focus is right now on Part A is looking at the addendum and what's included in that. Brief history of the project, as you know, back in 1991, the city adopted the environmental document, and the focus was on widening Bristol Street 4 to 6 lanes, reducing congestion, but also it wasn't just a transportation project. It was focused on providing that complete street. It was kind of a predecessor to the Complete Streets Act, in looking at all the users that could possibly use this street and making sure that it wasn't just focused on cars, but focused on pedestrians and bicycle riders and whatnot. And
Can you lift your mic up a little bit?
Mr. Gabriel, but as you talk about complete streets, and I know we're mandated because of the state of California and SB 375 and AB 32, and we're updating our general plan that we need to do complete streets, and we're moving in that direction. But it doesn't mean as well that complete streets has to, whether it's class 1 or class 2, and we have multimodal opportunities, you can put that on a class 1 as well that would meet the needs of complete streets. So I want to be very, and I'm pointing this out because I know, I'm very supportive of complete streets and bikeability and different modes of mobility, but we also need to be very clear that complete streets doesn't mean that we need to expand to 6 lanes to provide that bike lane on a class 2. We can put it on a class 1 where we have different multimodal, whether you're walking, you're biking, or you're in a wheelchair, or you're on a skateboard. And so I just want to be very clear on that point.
Sure. And so we're also focused on being consistent with not only the environmental documents and specific plan that was approved in the early 90s, but we have implemented projects along the way. We're currently working on our 6th project, a mainline project, and one of those components is the sound wall. And here we look at the phase in question between Washington and 17th Street. And again, to be consistent with the general plan, the circulation element, we need to make this street a 6-lane street from a 4-lane street. And we're also providing for the bike lanes, for a raised median, for a separated sidewalk from the roadway with a landscape buffer. And so what does the addendum actually address? The addendum basically addresses two items. One is the visual mitigation of a wall that would serve the purposes of a sound wall, which, as you know, the community has supported, as well as has been provided consistently along the corridor. The second clarification in the addendum is a potential that was seen back in 1990 for a right turn lane from eastbound 17th Street to southbound Bristol. That's on the southeast corner or southwest corner of Bristol and 17th. And due to the impacts to the college and the lack of a need for that specific movement, there's not a lot of cars that make that turning movement, and it is accommodated in the existing lane configuration. Again, that has been removed so that we don't impact the college. The addendum itself is not related to any of the issues related to the Bristol Business Coalition. It's focused on just those two items. So staff recommends that at the next council meeting that we bring this a resolution to approve the addendum back to the City Council. This will allow the project to proceed as planned and will include a visibility wall that will meet the same standards as the sound wall has on the southern segments of Bristol. And if we don't approve the addendum, then the funding for the wall will be jeopardized. So that would be staff's recommendation. With that, I have any questions on the specific part?
You can also take questions at the end. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the Bristol Business Coalition proposal. And there's a graphic there that shows again, the same block between Washington and 17th. And if you notice, the north arrow is to the right. So north is over to the right. Over by 17th Street, we have an area of existing improvements that's already been constructed. So that roadway widening has already been performed. And just so that you can get an idea of the impact, if you go to the Washington Avenue and Bristol corner, you can see how there's a vacant lot there. You can see how far back the proposed widening will take and will impact that one property. So if you can kind of visualize that gets carried through, and it might not be so clear, but a lot of the properties there, the widening is impacting the structures. So this is not just a matter of working with the city and the city allowing some of those structures to remain. The widening is actually bisecting some of those structures. So
William,
I'll show more graphics a little later on.
There's been a question about the width of the street, whether it be 120 feet, 128 feet, 150 feet. Can you speak to that? And when you say that what you're describing here, that it actually bifurcates some of the actual buildings, at what width and is that, whatever width that is that what is absolutely required, and why is that
I have a graphic.
Okay, you'll get
that's
there.
right after the next one here.
Sure.
Just to point out, we do have a list of meetings here that we've met with the Bristol Coalition, so we've been listening to them all along. And the first few meetings, it was clear that the coalition wants to stay. And so as a staff, we were excited to see if there was a way that we could accommodate them. But they really want to stay in the existing structures that are there that are going to be impacted by the widening. So to answer Councilman Benavides' question, the coalition proposal, first of all, their concerns are not related to the addendum. If the addendum is approved by the council at the next meeting or a subsequent meeting, we'll still continue to talk to the Bristol Coalition. The 1990 EIR identifies all of the properties along the east side of Bristol between Washington and 17th as full acquisitions. That's the guiding document that's running this project. And the addendum just impacts Phase 3B, which is the block that we're talking about. The EIR also compels the city to perform a complete or a full acquisition because the EIR states that properties that become severely impaired or parcels that are rendered non-conforming due to setbacks, size, or parking requirements shall be full acquisitions. That's the language that's in the EIR. So the EIR, when it analyzed the full takes on the east side, it considered exactly the dilemma that we're dealing with already. So all of the properties along the east side were considered full takes. And also one other point is that the EIR did not consider the impacts of partial acquisitions in this particular block. So if we were to engage with parcel acquisitions, we might have to deal with subsequent EIR issues with that. And so now getting to the bottom line here, this is the area that's already been widened a little closer to 17th. And there's some dimensions there that taper over and then they get to the regular standard width. And as you can see, the two properties that are shown there, you can see that the back of the sidewalk goes right through the buildings. So those properties would be very, very difficult to work with. I mean, you'd be talking about bisecting structures and then trying to rehab them, plus the leftover remnant parcels would be very, very small. I think that you can see that these two cases are extremely difficult to work with at a partial take.
Whose buildings are those?
I think the top one is Mr. Chavez, J.C. Chavez Realtors, and I forget which is the second one is.
The dental.
Okay, the dental. And that dental building is a masonry building, so that'd be even more difficult to work with.
William, can you make sure you try specifically answer Councilman Benavidez' question? Because he's saying, what does 100 feet look like, et cetera, et cetera?
So what we're providing for on Bristol Street is based on a 128-foot wide right-of-way. That 128-foot is for 3 lanes in each direction, a 14-foot median, a 7-foot bike lane in each direction, and in a perfect world, we'd have a sidewalk and parkway in between the sidewalk, and that's for pedestrian safety reasons. So we would have an 8-foot wide sidewalk and a 6-foot wide parkway in between the sidewalk and the roadway. That's so that we can gain separation. So the idea of complete streets is not only to provide mobility for all, but it's also because Bristol Street is a corridor, it's an arterial street, and the speeds are quite high. It's really important to provide a separation between the roadway and the pedestrians. So that's the purpose of having an 8-foot wide sidewalk and a 6-foot wide parkway.
Councilman Martinez, any comment on that?
But wouldn't we be able to accommodate that if we were to put the bike lanes within the sidewalk and do multimodal within the sidewalk to reduce the bike, we're adding an additional bike lane and then a buffer for safety, which makes sense. But for us to wanting to be supportive of the business community and still have the landscape and still comply with complete streets, as we look at that major corridor, being able to use the sidewalks on Bristol are very wide. Very few people walk on those streets, and very few people are actually riding their bikes on Bristol. And people are nodding their head, but I ride my bike on Bristol, and I actually ride it on the street, not on the sidewalk. But I see various people when they are riding their bicycles on the sidewalk. I know we're trying to provide the opportunity to provide bike facilities, which are class 2, to provide mobility from one part of the town to the next of connectivity, and I certainly get that. But as we look at complete streets, specifically on Bristol, I think we need to be open to the opportunity, if we can, and take a look, if we can use the sidewalk as a multimodal use versus adding a bike lane on the street to create a class 2 bike lane.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes. Please, go ahead.
The Councilwoman is an avid biker, and so am I, so we do the biking. One of the things that we need to do as follow-up to that is give the council a full idea of the structure that's in place now, because one of the things that I would be concerned with is a bike lane, and then a sidewalk, and then a bike lane. And right now, there's a bike lane that's been put in place in many parts of Bristol, and I think it's an option going forward. But we would want to bring back the structure for people and the integration that is possible or not possible with that type of of situation. So this is just a thought.
And you guys are avid bikers. You actually went biking together recently, didn't you? Who was not as exhausted?
Much better than I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Anyway, so the graphic that's shown up here is some of the widening impacts on the east side of Bristol, specifically to the addresses that are listed there. And as you can see, if we went with the alignment that we were talking about, which is 128 feet, the back of the sidewalk would be impacting those structures. And in one case, I think one of the structures is being missed by a foot. But for all practical purposes, when you're doing the roadway widening construction, it would be very, very difficult to keep the structure intact and in place. So for practical purposes, all of these four structures will be impacted. Now,
but William, let me just stop you there for a moment and ask you a question. One of the meetings that you were a part of, that I was meeting with some of the coalition folks, I believe you had a rendering that showed the structures moved away from Bristol, closer towards the existing property lines on the east side. Did that rendering that you had, did that include the 128 feet that we're referring to, or was that a different width?
That included the full widening that staff is proposing.
Will you show us that rendering later today in the presentation?
I don't have that available with me, but I can certainly have it at a subsequent
Can you just
meeting
circulate it tomorrow or later to council members? I just want everybody to be able to see that rendering, because...
Mr. Mayor, we would like a copy of that.
Well, look, I know Councilman Martinez said we want a dialogue, but if somebody wants to say something, why don't you come behind William and stand there, and then I'll call on you, because otherwise we'll get into too much of a free flow, and that we don't need that for right now. So if you have a question, Tom, please just come behind William, and then at the right time I call on you. Please go ahead.
At this particular location, and I don't want to confuse matters, but at this particular location, the roadway right-of-way width is not 128 feet, it's actually 124, because we're not capturing the full width widening on the college side. So basically, we're getting credit for not widening the way we would be on the east side, which is with the 8-foot sidewalk and the 6-foot parkway. On the college side, we would just be providing for a 10-foot wide sidewalk. So actually, the widening here is 124 feet, and it still impacts, as is shown in the graph.
But we still get some benefit because they're doing other cool things at the college, right, beyond
Correct.
the sidewalk.
There's quite a bit of landscaping behind
behind the little wall.
Yeah.
Please,
go,
just speak
I'm
up.
sorry, so on the college side of it, how much space are we looking for the sidewalk and the landscape? What's current right now? Combined, correct.
We would have 10-foot sidewalk, and I believe there's about a 4 to 6 foot wide buffer that's landscaped behind the sidewalk.
And this is on the college side?
This is on the college side, correct.
And currently, right now, how much space do they occupy?
Currently, there's a narrower 8-foot wide sidewalk, and I don't know if the landscaping is already on the college side.
So if they're 8 and we're looking at 10, we're gonna intrude into the street 2 feet?
Yeah, we're gonna pull the curb out 2 feet. Correct, and then the widening takes place over towards the east, and that's the way the EIR.
If my understanding, the college not too long ago just spent millions of dollars renovating that, and so we're going to go back and tear it back up and put more money into that to get an additional 2 feet. That's what we're looking at doing.
The college actually submitted plans, and they pulled a permit to repair all of the sidewalks, and so we had them. Instead of doing patchwork repairs, we had them repair larger areas. Most of the improvements were completely on private property. So we worked with the college, with the school district based on a permit to repair the sidewalks.
Let me, and maybe Councilman Martinez, you want to jump in here, but are we going to end up with a 10-foot sidewalk right now on the west side of the street in front of the college?
Yes.
Could that be multimodal and address what she was talking about earlier?
We'd have to look into that to see how that would work.
Maybe a follow-up thing to do. Councilmember Sarmiento?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, I don't know how far along you are, because I want you to finish your presentation as well. Are you?
One more slide.
Why don't you do that, and let's, I'll hold my question until.
Okay. So the consequences of the Bristol Coalition proposal is that what we might have if we do parcel acquisitions is that we might create even more severely impaired parcels. The parcels that are there on the east side, along the east side of Bristol, they're fairly small. The four that I showed the last graphic on, they average 6,600 square feet. So those parcels, after the acquisition is completed, if it's a partial acquisition, those parcels would be even more severely impacted. There's also the issue of access. Those parcels would be limited in how much access they can have to Bristol Street. The whole purpose of the Bristol widening is also to not have so many drive approaches, so many access locations into the roadway for roadway purpose, for roadway safety purposes. The city would also be obligated to deal with multiple variances because those parcels would be smaller. There would be no setbacks that could be met. They couldn't meet the size requirement. They couldn't meet the parking requirements. So that would be something that the city would be obligated to deal with. The other thing is that the partial acquisitions would reduce or eliminate the corridor improvements that were envisioned by the Bristol specific plan. So that'd be something else that we'd also have to deal with. And then the last thing, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, there was no impact analysis done for partial acquisitions along the east side of Bristol Street. So that would be something that we might have to be looking at. So that's really all that I have to say, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Let me see if council members, I know Councilor Sarmiento had a question. Let's start there, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for that presentation, William. I want to talk to you about our timing. You were saying that you, right now, the way things are sequenced, you want to come back to the council for approval of the resolution for the addendum, correct?
Yes.
And
it's actually good news because I think that we can still be talking and dealing with the Bristol Coalition issues and the partial or full acquisitions, but we would recommend that we come back with an addendum and that gets approved so that we can get the funding established.
So the funding is not in jeopardy and we can take care of that. Okay, that makes sense. Now, the environmental document that is compelling us to do the dimensions as you've stated, what in that environmental document, is that for all three phases of the Bristol Street widening, or is it for phase 3 alone?
The EIR covers all of the Bristol widening, including phase 3B, which is the one that we're discussing.
Okay.
And there is a graphic that kind of shows that right there. That is the one area between 17th and Washington along the east side, and all of those solid filled triangles and octagon. I think there's an octagon in there, or circle. Those indicate that they're full takes, and that's in the EIR.
Right. And I guess the reason why I'm asking this is that what drives, I think, people nuts, or what's confusing, is that if you go to phase 2, which is between First and McFadden, there's some very odd alignments that are along that phase, which have a house. I think there's a residential property that has its front door almost on the street. I'm exaggerating the point, but literally the gate is up against the sidewalk or up against the curb almost. So obviously we don't want that. But how do you tell business owners who say, "Look, you're going to bifurcate my business. Why don't you just adjust the alignment so we can stay the same way the house was allowed to stay?" That's what makes it a little goofy, and I guess that's what makes it a little difficult to justify, because if that same environmental document compelled us to look at a widening that was going to encompass what we needed to, the six lanes and the sidewalk and everything else, it wasn't respected in phase 2, obviously, to the extent we wanted to. Now we want to, again, go by the letter of the environmental document to compel us to do this on phase 3, which doesn't seem to be fair, because it wasn't respected the way it should have been, I think, in the previous 2 phases. So I think that's the problem that we're dealing with right now, is just a fairness and equity issue. I'm supportive of the wall, whether we call it a sound wall or what's the other
Visibility wall.
The visibility wall. It's going to address the same thing, I think, that the neighborhood is talking about, which is to create a buffer between whether it is additional landscaping, an open space area, or a commercial area, which is what it is right now.
That's correct.
But, I do think we should consider looking at the college, the west end of the street, to see how we can burden them a little bit more, because there isn't anything there that's going to disrupt anything. I think there's some space there that we might be able to work with. And I have seen a lot of attention paid to the east side of the street. I just haven't seen a lot of attention paid to the west side of the street. And I think there was some mention made of a very broad sidewalk there, a 10-foot sidewalk. I don't know if that could be reduced. I don't know if that could be adjusted to include the bike and the pedestrian traffic. But one thing I would tell you is, because that block is so long from Washington to 17th, how many pedestrians do you really have? It's not a real walkable block. So that's something that's unique to Bristol. That corridor just doesn't lend itself well to pedestrian traffic as much as maybe biking, just because they are long blocks. And if you look at the way complete streets are laid out, short blocks lend themselves well for pedestrian traffic, not the blocks that we're talking about here on Bristol. So that's just something for us to think about. But like I said, if there's some attention that could be paid to the west end of the street, that would be helpful, because I think we could get creative with some of what we're talking about, allowing both uses to remain.
Additional comment? If not, Councilman Reyna, please.
I have a question.
If we do full acquisitions of all the parcels that we have currently, when we're done with that, are we looking to put in a strip mall?
I think what we're looking at is to deal with the remnant parcels and to possibly package them so that they could be sold. And that way, if it's a larger property, then that could be a private venture by a developer. And whether it becomes a strip mall or whether it becomes whatever it becomes, I think that we do have the Bristol Street specific plan as a guideline or template to follow. So I would refer to what's in the Bristol specific plan as our guiding principle as to what we might make of what goes there.
So it sounds like there's a couple of options or possibilities that we might put in there, and one of them could potentially be a strip mall of some sort, some type of brick and mortar that's going to have some kind of commerce taking place.
Correct.
My hope and my desire would be to work with the coalition to make sure that they stay, and whatever fashion that looks like. When I first met with them, that was their concern. My family's been going to the dentist with Dr. Ochiai for 43 years, and I think he's been around for 44 years. So we've almost started from when he got started, and this is the fabric of our community. And I think we need to do what we can to make sure that they stay. If the current plan of their facilities, their buildings are conducive for what we're looking at, then I completely understand that. But still yet to keep them in part of the process so that they're able to maintain their businesses that they have for over 20, 30, 40 years, depending on which one it is. But that would be my hope and my direction that I would support. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, any other comments? I know Mayor Pro Tem had a comment.
Yeah, I have a question. In the 1990 EIR that you mentioned, did it talk about the measurement being 120 feet versus 150 feet?
Yes, it did. It stated that the roadway widening would be approximately 120 feet. The EIR also talks about the project impacts and the fact that there could be some landscaping behind the 120 feet. And of course, the EIR also talks about other impacts that need to be mitigated, such as the wall. So the wall is obviously way beyond the 120 feet, but it does state it's 120 feet.
Because in the 1990 EIR, if I'm not mistaken, it also talked about having a sound wall. Correct. But in 2013, that changed to 150 feet, and then it's not a sound wall now. It's
a visibility wall.
It's a visibility wall. So that's where because I'm hearing the folks from Washington Square say that they want a sound wall, and explain to us the difference between the visibility wall and the sound wall.
So when the original EIR was developed back in 1990, sound needed to be mitigated, and the way sound was calculated back then the way to mitigate the sound was with a sound wall. Since then, the way that you justify sound has changed, believe it or not, and today a sound wall cannot be justified. So we had to be...
So a visibility wall is better than the sound wall?
Maybe we can just clarify that the engineering will be equivalent to
The specifications for the wall are identical, but we're able to justify a visibility wall, but not a sound wall. So long as it can be environmentally justified, then that means that the improvements qualify for funding.
I have a question.
So it's a technicality, but it's an important one.
One more and then.
I'll call you in a moment.
You know, me being a debate coach, I like a good, hard, wholesome debate. I like to hear both sides. I like to find out what's going on with who has the logic and the argument and making the best plan work. What the main negative that I have received as far as information from the coalition is that they had provided staff with alternative options, yet those alternative options have not been discussed with them, that they're kind of shelved to the side, and you kind of go back. Our staff is kind of going back and reiterating the same plan. I think as a council member, and I don't know if I speak for everyone, but I think we'd like to hear what their plan is and get a report back on why that plan can or cannot work. And that's something that I think, that's the element I think that's missing for me to 100% move forward on this project.
I think it's a fair request. City manager's nodding his head yes. Would you like to say anything?
It's an issue that was brought up by Councilman Sarmiento about other parcels that didn't respect the EIR. And the issue here is that with the plans that have been presented, it entails a partial take versus a full take. If we do a full take, the plans are not allowable. So we'll go back and look at that again. But that is in essence, Mayor and council members, the issue there.
Yes, please, go ahead.
And with respect to our staff, and I haven't seen any, in my time on the council, it's been a pretty long time, I haven't seen a staff go out and meet and discuss what's going on with the people that are being affected by it. At the end of the day, I think if you do take parcels away, I think that you have to look at every possible solution before we take someone's private property away. And therefore, I think at the end of the day, if this is where we're going, we've done everything, everything in our power to look at every option. And I think that is going to suffice for most of the council members here. So if we could do that and engage with them and keep us abreast of that information, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Council Member Amesco, and then I'll come to Benavides.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that I'm also, in terms of taking private property away, I want to see that would be our last resort, in my view. Going back to the wall, if you can tell us more specifically with respect to the dimensions, what is the difference between the sound wall and the visibility wall? I'm not too clear on why one is okay and the other one is not.
It's just a matter of how you calculate sound impacts today versus how you did them back in 1990. So the formula is basically changed, and when you apply the inputs today with today's formula, it doesn't qualify. The mitigation doesn't qualify for sound mitigation. But the qualities of the wall are identical. A sound wall is basically a solid wall where all the cells in the blocks are filled. Well, a visibility wall can be constructed exactly the same way. As a matter of fact, we intend to use the same specifications for the sound wall, and we can just call it a visibility wall. The EIR addendum qualifies a mitigation for visibility, right. And so therefore, that's how we were able to fund that.
And how high is it going to be?
We intended it for it to be 8 feet. However, that's still we can still discuss that and adjust that. I'd refer that question maybe to Jason. Maybe he can answer that. Originally, we intended 8 feet. We heard today that the desire is 10 foot. I'm sure that there's some wiggle room there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Benavides and then Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, to follow up and just ask for a little bit further information from what Councilman Tinajero and other colleagues here have mentioned. As we look at the different scenarios, both what what the city or staff is proposing and what has been submitted for consideration by the North Bristol property owners, it would be helpful to have a visual where we actually see the 116 feet, for example, that had been suggested or referenced, the 120, 128, basically the different those different widths, so that we can see what that impact is to the properties. It just will be very helpful to be able to maybe have some of that up there now.
Yeah, that might be one that maybe is along the lines that you're talking about. This one shows that with the right-of-way acquisition that's needed for the roadway improvements, you can see that there's a structure there that's being impacted, and that's pretty much the case where we're finding some very difficult physical limitations to accommodate the coalition's desire to stay in those buildings. We think that we can accommodate them maybe on other properties along that project, but not at that specific location. So that's what we thought we were originally meeting with them on. But if they continue to state that they want to stay in that structure, because it's very difficult for us to figure out how they can stay in a structure that's being impacted by construction and basically bisected.
So if you can include, I know earlier in one of the slides you showed a good portion of that east side of the Bristol Street from Washington to 17th, or there were sections of it where you showed in green some of what that take would be or what would be needed, but I didn't necessarily see the measurements, the widths. So if you can just add that, to, again, a few scenarios, the visual would help. I know me and perhaps others on the council as well. I think what you're hearing is we all want to make sure, one is that we do everything we can to mitigate and address, and if there's a possibility and a way to retain the businesses, look at their consideration, which is as is, if not what has been suggested, looking at other options to be able to, if there needs to be rebuild, look at that option as well. But ultimately, if we do need to have significant takes, that it's clearly justified, and that there's no shadow of doubt as to why we need that, so we can ultimately get behind that and be able to explain why we're taking the position that we're taking. So again, looking at those different scenarios and looking at the different widths that have been recommended or have been mentioned during this conversation will be helpful as a follow-up. Thank you.
Councilor Martinez?
Thank you, Mayor. I think what this all boils down to, and our city manager made mention of it, is the acquisition issue, and it comes down to a policy issue from this council. Do we want to make an amendment and do an additional addendum to the EIR regarding full or partial take? This is a decision that this mayor and council has to make to give city staff direction. That's the only way they're going to be able to move, and that's a decision. And so I would like to direct staff to come back with that alternative and what the possible impacts may be. Just say if we were to make amendments and do an addendum to do partial takes versus full takes. So that would be my request of this city council, to direct staff to come back with these options and what the implications can be, because I have addressed this with our staff, that there may be some implications based on our current EIR from 1990. It says all we can currently now is do full takes. And if we move forward with a partial take, there can be some implications based on the EIR, and as we move forward with the rest of, the Bristol widening and other areas in the city of Santa Ana as we do different widenings throughout the city.
Mayor, members of
Yes,
the council,
please.
Councilwoman Martinez, thank you. We'll do that. We're not taking action today, but we will look at that. We alluded to it a little bit, but we'll give you a better understanding of the timeline, the environmental issues there, what that would do to the project, the funding. But we're going to come back with all the information that you request.
Let me ask a couple questions, and then if folks need to say something, I want to acknowledge you as well. What I want to talk about is the fact that, whether we call this a sound wall or a visual wall or anything else, it's just a funding mechanism, and it's our way of, I believe, trying to do something everybody wants. Because something I hear from, the neighborhood is certainly that they want, safety, they want a barrier, they want protection, and that means a tall wall. So, Tom and other neighborhood leaders that are here, if you want 10 feet, tell us now, because right now we've got this wiggle room, and I think we can get to the 10 feet. And I've not heard anybody from the business side saying, don't give a wall to the neighborhood. I mean, I think everybody's cool with a wall. So if everybody's cool with a wall, whatever the addendum is, let's make sure it includes that ability for us to, when we adopt it, to fund that. So having said that, the second thing is that whether it's a full take or a partial take, we still can have a policy decision as to what we do. Because if we do a partial take, but we don't move any of the structures, it's not going to work very well, because some of these buildings, you can't cut them in the middle of the building and then just put some kind of a wall through the middle of it. It just doesn't work. So if we are considering a partial take, which I personally would like to see happen, because if we can do this well, I want to help save as many businesses as we can. Maybe we can't save all of them, I don't know, but I'd like for us to consider a partial take that accommodates the widening, and that probably is going to have to mean that we have to relocate buildings. And, I think I probably have the most experience on this council dealing with that, because we had to do that when they were widening First Street back in the 80s. We had to move an existing structure, build a new building in order to accommodate the widening of the street. Of course, then when the city came around and said, now we're going to have to condemn the new building to build a shopping center, that's what got me going and got me on this council. But if there is a way that we can do something here, I think that's going to be it. I think everybody's not going to get everything they want, but if at the end of the day, if we can have a quality environment for the businesses, an enhancement to the street, protection and enhancement to the neighborhood, I think that's what we ought to strive for. So with that, why don't I allow a few additional comment from folks that wish to address us, and then we'll probably call it an evening after that. John Palacio, would you like to go first? Please go ahead.
Actually, I just wanted to address the idea of, let's say, the roadway width. At 120, if you apply the same standard that you're using at SAC, which is, city staff is saying a 10-foot sidewalk on that side with landscaping behind it. If you apply that same standard, and it's part of complete streets, I'm assuming, because you're allowing that to exist on that side. So if you apply that same standard to our side of the street, you put the 10-foot sidewalk and allow the landscaping to occur on private property, on the building's properties, you are not affecting the buildings at 120. You can still have all your multimodal elements. You still have room for the 7-foot bike lanes. You've still got your 14-foot center divided median. You have your 6 12-foot travel lanes. You've got all your multimodal elements. You're just mirroring what's done on the SAC side. Also, in reference to how much land is available on the SAC side, or how far the property line extends onto SAC, I know city staff was kind of not sure. They told us it was a little difficult to figure out where the property line was, so our architect and our engineer went out and figured it out and put markers along the SAC property line, and it looks it's about 2 feet into the landscaping. So in a lot of areas, Lon can address that a little bit better, but it's about 2 feet. So in terms of widening the road, you can get your widening done. Just use the same application that you're using on the SAC side, apply it to the businesses, allow the landscaping to happen right in front of the properties. We can create that uniform look.
As a follow-up meeting, can you just put everything you said in writing, present it to staff, let them
Actually,
come
we
see?
have several times.
The new one with the stakes, photos of where you've just staked the property, that's what I'm talking about.
What do you mean?
You said that you just had your engineer go out and actually define the property line. That's what I'm saying. Go back to city staff and show them that, because maybe we're closer than we think we are.
Sure, and actually that's a fair question, but we have provided, that's part of our plan. the 120-foot right-of-way with the sidewalk and the landscaping, that was part of our original plan, and it can happen.
And that's what we asked.
presented it to
Well,
cities-
well,
yeah, oh.
and that's what I've already asked staff
Thank you.
to take a look at and
That's
give us
great.
some response to that.
That's great. That's exactly what we were looking for. Also, I wanted to address what William said is really true. What works 20 years ago as part of your EIR, the sound walls were required 20 years ago, and now as a result of new technology, they're no longer required. Well, full acquisitions could happen 20 years ago at 120 because redevelopment was in place. I actually went back after our meeting with the city manager. I mentioned the original ordinance, which was back in 1989, and the city manager asked me for that ordinance. So I went out and found it and went back even further to where the plan was started, which was way back in 1987. So we found the draft EIR. In that document, it tells you that it started as part of the Community Redevelopment Agency under Cynthia Nelson. It tells you that this is a redevelopment agency plan involving 781 acres along Bristol Street. It says a separate but associated project is the Bristol Street widening. It talks about commingling or the marriage of the two elements. So what I'm saying to that is, if it worked 20 years ago, it worked because redevelopment was in place. Using that same argument, bringing it forward to today, it doesn't work today because you don't have redevelopment. So at 120, really, can you justify your full parcel acquisitions? I don't believe so. I think that if you look at our plan, you can see that we can achieve what the city wants to achieve. We're not saying don't widen the street. We're just saying, really look at our plan, give us a chance. Really explore the possibilities with us, because I think we have a good idea. And thank you for directing staff to do so. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
Well, what I'm hearing, I'm sorry, did you have a comment to make? Go ahead, please, go ahead.
I'd just like to...
Speak into the mic, real direct.
I'd just like to take the opportunity to perhaps clarify a couple issues, not get into a lot of detail this evening. But if we work with the 120-foot right-of-way, if you look at your slide up on the screen there, that's a 128-foot right-of-way. If we go back to the 120-foot, three of those buildings would not be impacted at all. The 1411 North Bristol would have a two-foot impact, and then the top two have a significant impact, and I'm not sure what we can do with those. But the bottom four, I think, are certainly savable. And then the other question in reference to the college, the right-of-way is actually 65 feet wide from the center line west, south of 17th Street, to about where the McDonald's property is on the east side. So when we talk about a 10-foot sidewalk, there is sufficient right-of-way in place now for that distance from 17th Street down on the college side to actually implement a 10-foot sidewalk without pushing that curb face, existing curb face that's along the college east. Because that's going to be a very expensive proposition to do that, where you do have right-of-way available to accomplish the goals that you're trying to achieve in the widening of Bristol. That was all I wanted to say, just to kind of clarify that.
Thank you. Any comment on that? If not, John Palacio, please.
So now that we know that there's more right-of-way left, city right-of-way, we're talking about city right-of-way. If you went westward on the sidewalk, you could do it without extending the curb. These are city plans, by the way, and the markers are their markers, part of the construction plan. One of the goals of the city was to minimize the number of driveways. We agree. Alternative plan for a third of a mile is only 6 driveways. It's interesting, your current construction between at the corner of Civic Center and Bristol, from the gas station to In-N-Out, there's 4 driveways. 70 yards is 4 driveways. We're proposing for a third of a mile, a little bit better than that, 6 driveways. I think our plan's a little bit better. The right turn, last night I measured it. I went and measured the right turn. We agree, I think that the traffic flow on First Street and 17th Street are pretty similar. I think we would agree that. So if you go northbound on First Street in Bristol, there's a right turn. Remember, you own the property for about a half a mile. That's 228 feet is your right turn, more or less, okay? More or less. You know what your right turn is on 17th and Bristol right now? It's 230 with 70 feet more left. Because that property, the San Fiesta property that's owned by Danworth, that was bought by Danworth and sold to the college, that's 300 feet. You got 70 feet more. So the notion that you got to go further eastward is not necessarily true because you've got 300 feet of right-of-way possibly you could use, which is 70 feet more than you have on Bristol and First. The other part is what the city's proposing is a strip mall. A strip mall that basically will remove us from the site. It's 120 foot, by the way, not 128 that they're proposing. And they want us to lease, they want to become tenants. First, we got to relocate and then come back as a tenant. That's the proposal the city is suggesting, because what they want to do is, they want to sell it to a developer who in turn needs tenants, and that's what they're suggesting, become a tenant after 30 years of owning your property. The other issue here is the right-of-way on the sound wall. There's two right-of-ways, I believe. There's obviously the one in front of the Bristol. Yeah, there's a right-of-way. But there's also a right-of-way on the east side of the property. There's telephone poles right behind McDonald's, right behind all those businesses. So I would assume that wherever there is a telephone pole, there's a right-of-way. Is that a fair statement? No? So you put telephone poles on private properties? Okay. Well, that's something to look at. Okay. There's an easement. That's right, it's an easement. Well, okay, it's an easement. Sorry, we're playing technical here. So anyway, there are easements behind McDonald's, behind the dentist, behind everyone. So if you need to put the question, Mr. Lutz, there's an easement that you can put that the wall.
Just to clarify, easements usually taken for utility purposes are strictly used for utility purposes only. So if we have an easement for a utility line, we cannot then just automatically use that easement to put up a wall. Just for clarification, to make sure the council understands that.
As a suggestion. Last item is we provided alternatives, including addressing the intersection of 17th and Bristol about maybe switching properties with some of the owners further south on the same between Washington and Bristol, and to accommodate what the city is arguing that there is you need more space. We haven't had a response to that. And I also cited the California Housing and Community Development Guidelines for that, as well as the federal law that relates to the acquisition. So you really would, if you want to, if you have, because you don't need the many feet that you need. And I think that's real important to understand that. What the city is doing is, frankly, I'll make it real simple. They want to impact the buildings so they can take it away. But if you go between your current construction right now, that's not happening. There is, if you go to Civic Center, again, Civic Center in Bristol, there is no landscape. Look at those requirements. Completely different. Only from Washington to 17th is it different at this time. Between First and Civic Center, it's a little different. And you would just want to be fair. Lastly, let me just tell you this. You need businesses to thrive. You need businesses to leave. That's real important for you guys to understand that. Mr. Pulido, you ran on that platform, and you know what it means when people have invested 30 years of their life, and these people invested, and they're good people, and property's not blighted. The homes might be blighted that are south, that are closed, but the properties themselves are not blighted. And under redevelopment, the reason it applied because you needed a certain percent of that property on Bristol to be blighted. As you go northbound, there's less blight. And I think
Thank you. Thank you. Points well taken. Thank you. Tom Lutz? Zeke?
Thank you, Mr.
One
Mayor.
more speaker, and then we'll call it a day.
Just a couple of comments on some of your comments. Regarding the sound wall, the neighborhood is agreed that visual wall is fine. It's one of those things that walks like a duck and quacks like a duck is a duck. In this case, it isn't. A visual wall will be a sound wall. And we understand that.
And you like that, correct, Tom?
Pardon?
And you're in favor of
We're in favor
a duck.
of the visual wall. As our meeting said, it would be built in
It's still a duck.
sound wall. It just wouldn't be called a sound wall. As we mentioned earlier, that we request a 10-foot wall. I think we could probably negotiate that to 9 foot. It appears that the walls there at First Street, they are right up to the eaves of the house, and generally that is 9 feet at a house. So we would be acceptable with that. Regarding the house that Vince mentioned on South, that house did an extensive renovation and a wing addition on it, and I think that had a lot to do with the negotiation, and the front door is set back quite a bit compared to what the businesses would be here. Some of the mistakes on South Bristol that you allowed the El Parate to stay there, and after spending all that money, and then you have that visual blight. I'm not calling the coalition a visual blight, but at one of our meetings, we asked them, with the drawings that they presented us, how are you going to pay for all this? And at that time, they weren't able to answer that. So that would be probably a question you want to know. So when we get through spending millions of dollars for the street, that the sides are status quo. So we want to make sure that we have a good project, as mentioned earlier. Vince mentioned about not much pedestrian. I beg to differ on that. My street on Washington, it is 8 o'clock in the morning. It is full of students walking to the college. And on the west side, that is very dangerous. It's not very wide. I would say it's probably 6 foot, maybe, and there's no curb. And that should be a more pedestrian-friendlier, safer sidewalk, especially with the bus stop there, the students coming and going to school, that I would have recommended that would have a sidewalk parkway be put in with trees to make that sidewalk even more safer, such as you're planning on doing on the west side. Regarding the strip mall, we understand that that's possible. That was mentioned at the meeting back on June the 25th. What we would like to do is be involved, and in fact, we're going to be requesting a meeting with the planning department. We would like to have input as far as what's going on, if that should be take place, that we would want to see a building that would be built that would blend in with the buildings such as Bristol Marketplace on the northwest corner, and even the new renovations of Santa Ana College that would fit in, that would show off the $1 million that we're spending on the center medium and the additional lanes of traffic. Thank you very much. If we have something else, we will be sending it to you in mail. Thank you.
Please, I think we had another 2 comments.
Tom might come back for some feedback on this. In terms of the visibility wall, the visibility wall is visible more so on the Bristol side. But in terms of the backyards of the homes on Louise, you might work closer with the homeowners to see how you can, quote unquote, beautify the walls on the side of the homes so that the homeowners won't be looking at a bare wall. So there might be some conversations happening with the homeowners on Louise.
Well, at our meeting with the city, we understood that there were some mistakes made on the south end because when they built it right on the property line, and that meant they had to take the fences down at the property, the residential properties, which were all different. It created a big problem for the contractors because you had the side fences going into the fence, and so it had to be all reconstructed. So as we understood, what they would be doing is building it just on the east side the west side of back property lines of Louise Street. And the neighborhood association was in favor of that.
Look, on some of this just put on paper, I'm getting my colleagues saying, let's wrap this up. So do we have one more speaker?
No, that was point one. Point two. Now,
Could you put the timer on Zeke?
It's already red. It's already red.
If I made you the city
And he's
council.
wearing red.
Now you understand my friend's frustrations in terms of Grand Avenue. Because when the city first started planning that 20, 40 years ago, there was nothing happened until recently, if you will. And they were looking at a partial take, okay? Which in terms of our building would have come up to the building, they were taking the asphalt, and would have allowed us to keep the building. But if conversations were happening, we would have looked at purchasing the lot behind us, which is vacant, and using that to assess in terms of parking, etc. Those things never happened. So now the city is going to a full take for our building, which is a tilt-up concrete wall building. And as I understand just a few weeks ago, now the city is going back and changing their plans now because they want to take the lot next to us, which was never in the original plans. So staff can work whatever they want in terms of what they have to do, but it should be mutually in concert with policy. And that's what I want to get to, because it has not been. And so Grand Avenue could have been very different than what it is now. Our site on Grand Avenue, and you have our site, an empty lot, then you have the Rodriguez home. Frank Rodriguez lived in that home.
Zeke,
Frank is a former...
This is a work study session on Bristol.
Okay, it is.
So please,
But what okay,
I got the city attorney telling me.
Okay, yes,
So look,
okay.
why don't we just let the final
Let's go
speaker,
back
you've
to policy.
spoken about five times.
I like what you did in terms of providing the direction to staff to work closer with the businesses.
And here we are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, please.
I'm Bobby Keenan. You probably all know me. I just want to reiterate that that is a walkable area from Washington to 17th Street, and it's not just the college; it's the juniors high school beyond that. So there's a lot of traffic there, and that needs to be acknowledged and provided for. The other thing I was wondering is, why does the center median have to be so wide? If we took a few feet off of that, then maybe that would give more room on the other side. Myself, and I'm speaking for myself, I would like to see those businesses stay if we can accommodate that, because they're good neighbors, and no matter what, they're better than a strip mall. The thing that I'm worried about is what's going to happen to those blighted buildings, the building that's been burned out for years that people and rats occupy all the time. What's going to happen to those buildings if we just allow for the coalition properties to stay? And the other thing that really, really concerns me, and I've spoken to you about this before, is the traffic pattern at Washington and Bristol. Getting out of the square is nearly impossible. We need a right turn lane for the people that are westbound to turn right on a red light. And we need, and you own that lot, so you could make a lane right in that lot, that blighted lot that we've lived with for all these years. And we also need a turn signal for people that are southbound on Bristol to turn east into Washington, so that the people that are trying to beat the light don't run into us and kill us. I understand that you're not going to start construction for a couple of years maybe. Does that mean we have to live with that H-Salt lot for all that time more? It's just awful. I mean, it was just graffitied again last weekend, and somebody from the city had to go out again and spray over the graffiti, the netting around the wall. So anyway, that's basically all I have to say. But I hope that you'll consider this really carefully, because I think there are the interests of a lot of people here that are good people, and that we could come to a compromise that would suit everyone's needs.
Thank you. Look, maybe we ought to consider wrapping up here pretty soon, but just a couple final thoughts, and if anybody else wants to add anything, please do so. I think there's a way we can work with the businesses to save them, and that would be my preference. Whether it's different construction or existing construction because of a diminished street widening, let's look at what those options look like. I also believe that if there's any business that has to move, it doesn't mean that they have to give up ownership of the land. I know what we did at Ace Muffer was we widened, built a new building, but we did it on existing land that we had. And that is not something that's out of the box or out of reality here potentially. So let's do a quality widening. If we can do a quality widening at 120, I think that could work well. And let's figure out what that looks like. Also, I think sometimes so much gets said, we have to keep documenting everything. But as we come back with this, if we could look at at that intersection that keeps getting talked about right there on Washington and Bristol, let's see what we can do with that intersection. Maybe we bring it back and we just look at that intersection. I'm not suggesting we have to have another study session, but we have to see what is possible there. And I know that on some of the buildings, if they're abandoned, if we've already acquired them, for years up and down Bristol, we've been working with the fire department to get them to practice, and they burn down buildings, which is great because then we demolish them, and we ought to consider that to speed things up potentially. Also, on some of the homes that are not under any consideration right now, we may want to take those down as well, because we have several that are blighted that I know we're about to acquire. So when we acquire them, let's landscape and take them down early. But please, additional thoughts, Councilmember Sarmiento and then Martinez.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for taking us down memory lane, Mr. Mayor, on First Street, and John Palacios, you need to get a hobby, man, because if you're out at night measuring
in the middle of the night
turn lanes, just kidding. I wanted to thank former president of Washington Square, Lynette Verino, for her written communication. I think it was very helpful to get your perspective. And I think when people were talking about maybe some of the dimensions that we're taking on the west end of the street, it looks like we're pretty close. We're not that far if we're talking about 2 feet, and maybe the median does get reduced. There's ways to do this. I don't think we have to be so rigid. And I certainly don't want us to walk away thinking that the city manager's office is somehow trying to compel these business owners to lose their property so some third-party developer could come in and rent out. I don't think that's the objective here. I think we wouldn't be spending as many hours and resources as we have if that were the case. I think there's a legitimate interest in trying to resolve this. I think that the neighborhood has some valid issues, although the way they're looking at it is maybe a little bit more narrow than I wish they would. But I think the sound wall will help. I think that's something that the business owners and the neighborhood could agree with. I think it's good that they be involved in the conversation, but the real impact is to the businesses. And I think the businesses are the ones that need to be heard. If we consider ourselves a business-friendly city, again, these are the moments when we have to make those difficult policy decisions to demonstrate our commitment. And if we're not, then that's fine. Let's go ahead and condemn properties wherever we see it fit. But I think now is the opportunity to demonstrate that commitment that we've always said, that businesses drive the city, that those revenues that they generate provide the services for the neighborhoods. So I appreciate the letter that was written, because that's exactly the type of effort and that's exactly the type of commitment I think that all of us have pledged, but now's the moment when we have to stay true to that commitment. So the last thing I would leave with staff is, if you could, and our city attorney always does this, is give us those alternatives, not just the 128, not just the 120, but maybe looking at the alignment moving west instead of east. Maybe that's another option, maybe reducing that median by a couple feet. But what it does is, if we can look at a palette of options, it makes it much easier for us to say which one makes sense ultimately. And maybe we go back to the original once we look at the alternatives, and maybe they're not feasible, maybe they're not viable, but what it does is it gives us some options to work with, and I think that's helpful as opposed to just seeing one diagram that makes it kind of narrow for us to think creatively. So that's all I would say, and I see one of our Board of Trustees from the Rancho Community College. Thank you, Mr. Hanner, for being here, and I know that this is going to also affect the college, so we want to keep you all in mind as well as we're going through this. So any comments you have, please feel free to communicate with us as well.
If you'd like to say anything at this time, John, I'd be happy to call you up. John Hanna, I mean. With that, Councilman Martinez?
Yes, Mayor. You know, we have a perfect opportunity. The Bristol Street widening has been in planning for the past 20 years. We're talking about a 1990 EIR. This city council has made a commitment to setting some true policy and true planning as we move forward with updating our general plan. We're currently this summer we will be approving our circulation element, and these are issues that we were discussing about bikeability and mobility, and issues you're discussing on 17th and on Bristol and Washington. These are issues that need to be addressed in our circulation element, which is how people get around with mobility within, whether it be a car or whatever have you. That is the document that we as a council will be approving, and that I urge our residents in the business community to continue to look at that document and work with our staff to assuring that we're able to create a circulation element that meets the needs of this new general plan as we move forward. We're also updating and moving on with the pedestrian and bike master plan, which encompasses our complete streets. These are all documents that will be approved by the time the Bristol widening comes into play. This is where we have the opportunity to give input and put these policy issues within these planning documents. We haven't updated these planning documents. Some of them are very new, but we have an opportunity, and this is where we need to seize it, is within these planning documents that are going to be very vital for this city. I can go on specific issues with specific neighborhoods, but at the end of the day, we all have a responsibility to look at the entire city, which encompasses within these plans. And so I want to urge all our residents in the business community, as we are moving forward with the circulation element, the pedestrian and bike master plan, the complete streets, that you guys take and review those, take a look at these plans, talk with our staff, and review and see what is it that we can do to improve not only the safety of our residents as they're walking to and from school with their children, our college students within that Bristol corridor. We understand there are plenty of issues, but these issues also need to be addressed in these bigger picture plans, not just within the Bristol widening. And so I just want to encourage my colleagues to understand that we have an opportunity within these next couple of years to review all that, and then take a look and work with our staff, specifically with the Bristol Street widening, and saying these are policies that we're going to be setting within the circulation element, within the general plan, to move the city forward, not just with the Bristol Street widening. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to close the study session and bring it back to council. I believe we're now at city manager's report.
No report this evening.
Thank you. Who wants to start this time? Michelle, I think we went on the other side. Why don't we start with you today?
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And I totally forgot in my comments to thank staff. I want to thank our Public Works interim director, William, and his staff. I know William is currently our acting Public Works director, and so he getting involved within the Bristol Street widening and really participating with the businesses and the residents in all the meetings. I really want to thank him for really putting an extra effort to keep us informed and having that continued dialogue. I know that we're not there, but I truly want to thank him and his staff for providing their time to listen to all of you. And we're not always going to agree with everything, but I have to say that we do have great staff. And so with that being said, again, many thanks to our city manager and his Public Works director and the rest of the staff for helping us and presenting this study session before us today, and the continued dialogue with the residents in the business community. I also just wanted to take an opportunity as we start 2014, and I mentioned in my comments about all the great planning documents that are coming before the city, the strategic plan, probably the 2020 vision, but we have so many things happening, great things coming to this city. We're going to be planning for amazing things in this city. But as the policymakers and our staff, we have the opportunity to see a lot more. We want to engage the community. We want the community to be involved in these plans. So I want to encourage you as we move forward in 2014, as we do these community outreach meetings, that you're involved and that you're engaged in the process. We're wanting to be very transparent as we move forward, that these plans are not the city council and the staff's plans, but these are plans that are integrated with the mindset of what our community really wants for a better Santa Ana. And then I also wanted to discuss very briefly, I had the opportunity with my colleague, Councilman Sarmiento, to attend in Washington, D.C. We both sit on the legislative committee, and some of our legislative priorities as we move forward. There are a tremendous amount of issues that we're going to be addressing and needing support at the federal level, and there's a lot more to come as we look at our legislative policies to receive federal funding, whether we are discussing issues in regards to, and these issues are going to come up, and I'm going to be very blunt and upfront as we review issues with our jail, we review issues with our utility tax. These are all things that are federal issues that we need to address, and that this city council is going to have to really pay close attention to with our city manager and their staff to assure that we're successful. And so we will continue to monitor and hopefully provide you guys with insight, and in the coming months provide you what our federal and state legislative platform is going to be to really assure that Santa Ana is successful in receiving federal grants or state grants. These are very important things that we as a city council need to be abreast of, and most importantly, we just recently approved our federal lobbyists, and as we do that, and the renewal of our state lobbyists, wanting to make sure that we have priorities that are really in sync with our community, whether it be open space, whether it be public safety, whether it be issues with our utilities, that we understand that we're all working together. And so I look forward to a bright 2014 with all of you. We have a lot of work ahead of us with all these planning documents, and I hope that you guys are a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sarmiento, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo a lot of what was said. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, and thank you all for coming and joining us, especially on this discussion with the work study session. It is going to be something that's very difficult, but again, the idea is that we certainly want to dispel anything that's sinister, that the city is trying to do something to undermine or take your business away. I don't think there would be this much, again, time and effort expended if that were the case. So I hope that that's something that that myth is being dispelled as we go through this exercise. I want to reiterate what Councilmember Martinez said. The trip to D.C. was basically a lobbying effort to meet with both staff from Congresswoman Sanchez, Senator Boxer's staff, and the White House staff to advocate on behalf of additional UASI funding, which is public safety money, for the joint jurisdiction area here in the Civic Center. We spoke about the jail. We spoke about health care and how do we get that message out to our residents. So it was a very, very effective trip. I think we did a lot of lobbying that will benefit the city in the long run, so we hope that that's going to bear some fruit. I do want to mention that something that, and congratulate our Parks and Recs director, Gerardo Moet, and I'm not sure if he's here. Are you here somewhere, Mr. Moet? On the 21st of this month at 11:30 at Madison Park and Madison Elementary, we're going to be cutting the ribbon on the first joint use community garden. And we have a lot of joint use agreements with the school district for parks and different things, but this is the first of its kind on a community garden. And this is a commitment that both entities have made to both health and wellness and fitness. And I know Gerardo's worked very hard on the funding and on the collaboration. And I want to thank staff, the city manager's office, for supporting that. But if all of you could come and see that, hopefully that this won't be the only joint use agreement with respect to community gardens. Hopefully this will be a model that we can use for other sites and other campuses around the city. But I want to thank you all and invite you to that on the 21st, so hopefully you'll be able to join us. And finally, just to wish everybody a happy 2014. It's been a very difficult set of years that we've all survived together. And for the first time, there's a lot of optimism that I think I have in a conversation I had with our city manager this morning about some of the statistics that we're seeing in the forecast for the next few years. Looks very bright. And for the first time in a very long time, we see that things are not stagnant, they're not decaying, they're improving. Our property values in our homes are increasing, sales taxes are up, unemployment is down. We see that the county is going to do better as a whole relative to LA County and Riverside County. So Orange County will lead the way out of this recession and into this recovery. So hopefully Santa Ana will play a very, very important role in the county's recovery. So I just want to thank you all for bearing with so many difficult years, and hopefully all of us will be able to enjoy the fruits of some very, very difficult years in the years to come. So with that, happy 2014.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem, please, Tino Hero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, Happy New Year to everyone. We have something that we need to have a cause for alarm. There is an event called Cause for Alarm, and our firefighters, our Orange County Fire Authority, is going to be giving away smoke alarms for free. And they are partnering with the Orange County Red Cross Youth Volunteers, the Santa Ana High School JROTC, and as I stated, the Orange County Fire Authority. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to come together and they're going to meet at 9:15 at Station 75. Again, 9:15 a.m., Station 75. And what they're going to do is they're going to canvass the streets of Santa Ana and go door to door and offer free smoke alarms. And we're talking about, we have a very strong fire authority here that's servicing our community, but it's not just about going and putting out fires, it's also about prevention. And so when you have a proactive fire authority working here within our city, we're all safer for it. The Orange County Red Cross chapter will also host a barbecue for all who volunteer. Because you're giving away free food, I'm sure that Board Member John Palacio will be there in a jiffy. But that'll be at 601 North Golden Circle Drive in the city of Santa Ana. Again, 601 North Golden Circle Drive in the city of Santa Ana, and that is going to be on January 20th. On January 20th. So I want to thank the Fire Authority for teaming up with our community here and continue to do the great work that you do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Why don't we go on the left? Councilmember Mescla, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start off by wishing everyone a Happy New Year. Looking forward to making 2014 a very positive year, and I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues. Councilmember Martinez mentioned a lot of very exciting things coming down the pipeline in 2014. I want to also take a moment to thank my colleagues on the dais for supporting my appointment of Mr. Bauer to the Planning Commission tonight. I am very proud of the work Mr. Bauer has done in his role as Parks and Rec Commissioner, and I am confident that he will has the qualifications to also make an excellent Planning Commissioner. I do want to mention, I know it's kind of late, but I think it's important if we can get an update from Chief Brown with respect to the fish and game permit. I think the council members here would benefit from a brief update on that.
Certainly, Council Member Mescla. Before I start, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for your comments. Risk reduction and preventing fires and injuries is a big focus of your fire department. On that note, I'd like to just make a brief comment on the Santiago Creek Hazard Reduction Project. This is going to generate a lot of interest within the community. On that note, this is a two-phase project. The Fire Authority has been working closely with our city partner in the development of the plan, which includes scoping how to reduce the overall fire hazard within an area boundary between the 5 freeway and Jack Fisher Park. We've had a number of well-documented history of fire in that particular corridor, and under your leadership, we've been made aware of that problem in community inquiries. We have built a plan about that it's going to place focus on taking hazardous vegetation out of that area. But I want to emphasize just a couple things. Number one, this is on city-owned property only, and this is going to focus on removing that hazardous vegetation to reduce the threat of fire. The second part is my personal commitment that I'll be working closely with our city manager, providing a full briefing to him tomorrow and city staff with regard to our community outreach. As a commitment to full transparency, I've committed to meet with each and every resident along that corridor and to give the full scope of that project, and my personal commitment that this is what this is about. That is to protect them, protect their property and their family against the threat of fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Brown. I think it's important to reiterate there is no hidden agenda. It is strictly to mitigate any potential fire hazardous plants there along the creek. And having said that, I'd like to wish everyone a good night, and we'll see you in 3 weeks.
Thank you. Councilman Roman Reina, please.
Yes, first I'd like to welcome everyone to brand new City Council on Tuesdays. So make sure you mark your calendars. From now on, we are now meeting on Tuesdays. So this is our first one under the books. I had an opportunity to go to Jerome's Recreational Center and saw the youth sports going on. We have 41 teams and over 400 youth that are participating in. So Gerardo, you and your staff, your sports staff are doing a fantastic job. Looking forward to expanding that sports program even more so. Today, again, kind of blessed with being in the lives of some incredible young individuals. Suavecito and Peter and Jason and Tony are doing a fantastic job. Again, they are everything that's going right in Santa Ana, and they're not the only ones. There are so many other young people that have a passion and for Santa Ana and want to do good, whether it be in the entrepreneurships, whether it be in the education, or whether it be in services. And we need to continue cultivating those. I think our youth are one of our best natural resources that are not being tapped into as much as we could or should. And with that, I will say that Valentine's Day is coming up really soon, so please make sure you shop in Santa Ana, and Happy New Year's. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman David Benavides, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to wish everybody a Happy New Year as well, and it's going to be a good year. It's going to be a good year for us, for our city. I just want to encourage folks to resolve to support Santa Ana businesses. We saw one earlier, as was mentioned, in Suavecito. There's a lot of exciting things going on, a lot of cultural events. We're going to be having a number of utility boxes with art expression in our downtown here pretty soon. A lot of good things, a lot of exciting things happening in the city of Santa Ana. Let's support, be proud of where we live, where we do business, and I just welcome a prosperous and a very a successful 2014 for our city. Thank you. Have a good night.
And with that, I'm just going to wish everybody a happy new year here. We're going to have a great year, and thank you for all the folks that came down. We're going to continue to work with you and save some of those businesses on Bristol Street. So with that, let's go have a great year here.